Welcome everybody to our first meeting of the new year. It's our work session of January 10th. We'll call that meeting to order. And if you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Nikki?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so before we go on, in case those are watching at the beginning of the meeting, we did want to bring up the fact that we did have a fatality on Edgewater Drive over the weekend, which is, of course, a state road, the intersection is, and we have been in contact with FDOT through Forward Pinellas. And FDOT will be at our Forward Pinellas meeting tomorrow. The Secretary of the 7th District, which is Secretary Gwen, he will be there tomorrow. They're already looking at things. We have been discussing with them over the last year that there is no lighted flashing light crosswalk. And as a matter of fact, Commissioner Eggers had called in because it was dark one night when he drove through and just felt like it was too dark. So this intersection is a part of the Alt 19 corridor study that was done 5 years ago. But because they focused on Curlew, they haven't focused on this one, and now they're going to be going from Curlew to Largo. I have spoken with the director of Forward Pinellas to say that we need to bring this up tomorrow and try to move that back up. It would not be something that they could do, right away, but they can get in the work plan. The crosswalk is something they could possibly do right away, but I'll know more tomorrow at our 1 o'clock meeting. And I guarantee you that Dave and I will speak on our behalf for sure. Anything else you want to add, Jennifer?
Nothing to add, Mayor. We do have representatives from FDOT here, Florida Department of Transportation. They are their safety professionals. We anticipate there might be some questions in regards to this intersection. And I think that most notably, what is the short-term solution to illuminating that area and to marking the crosswalk so that it can be seen by those, taking that left-hand turn. And then what's the longer, the picture overall, and how to improve this, to improve pedestrian circulation and multimodal transportation in that particular intersection. It happened over the weekend. It happened on a Saturday night when we had the arts and crafts show. So there was a lot of pedestrian activity.
Though, right?
It was dark.
It was dark.
It was dark. It was after dark. So there's a lot of pedestrian activity in that area. So we certainly, look
The
forward.
downtown roads were closed too, so there was
Right.
no through traffic. So a lot of traffic was funneling through there.
Detoured through that intersection. Yeah. So certainly look forward to that conversation, at Fort Pinellas, and looking for that immediate solution, the way that we did at the Pinellas Trail eventually, and Skinner. So I'm sure.
Does anybody from FDOT want to get up and speak to this issue?
Ms. Rowe, it was very nice. We have part of the DOT safety team here with us today. If you want to come up, you're certainly listening very closely. I know started to already look at this situation, so I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you, guys. It was nice that they made the trip over here today to kind of hear firsthand and to be able to answer any questions that you might have. So.
Hi, I'm Joellen Guthrie. I'm with the Traffic Operations Office. And
Ginger Regalado. I'm with the Safety Office. Good morning.
good morning. You're absolutely correct. We have been rapidly looking at this intersection for the RFB crosswalk and looking for materials that we have on hand so that we can try to get something in place. We're in the process of finding what we have. I think between ourselves and Pinellas Pinellas County,
Right.
They also have some things in stock, and hopefully we'll be able to get some of this put in fairly quickly. The light, on the other hand, it's something that we would need to work with the power company on to get something lit out there. So that's something that we will definitely look to, and we agree with you. It's quite dark at that location.
And we are working on having education done in the area. We already have our people coming out to do education, not only for the pedestrians and cyclists, but for motorists as well. So we're going to be doing that, and we are working with law enforcement to have them do some high visibility enforcement in the area, which will include, if need be, citations, but more importantly, education as well for motorists to ensure they're doing the right thing. So we're working with Pinellas County's SO on that. And we're going to be doing geofencing in the area, which will allow for vehicles to go through. When the motorists exit out, they'll get messaging on their phone when obviously they're not driving, so that they get the messaging on what they should and shouldn't be doing. So those are all efforts that are happening now as well.
And are you guys going to be at the Forward Pinellas meeting tomorrow?
I particularly won't, but there will
No,
be.
we've been in.
You can watch it.
Yes,
We've been in direct connection with Secretary Quinn. and-
right.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think our big request is to go back and look at the Alt 19 corridor study where there were options for that intersection that hadn't been fully vetted yet. And, you know, it's been a funky intersection for decades, and we've been complaining about it for decades. So I think, you know, it needs the attention.
Mayor, you might recall Secretary Gwynn stepped in for Skinner and Pinellas Trail as
Right.
well for that signalization.
You had a question?
Well, I don't have a question. Can I just make a comment?
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, I know, but, I mean, it just feels like one of those things where we're waiting for the big solution, while interim solution probably is just unnecessary, and I had thought somebody said it was just before dark, but anyway, you know, I walk that all the time, as I know we all do, and, you know, part of it just is, you know, the pedestrian crosswalks there and they're turning, and, you know, and it's kind of that whole intersection is just set up in a way that, even for the driver, I feel bad, because you're like, all of a sudden, you've got pedestrian. And so it's just a bad setup. There's got to be a way, at least in an interim way, to create some safety there. I mean, it's just, like you said, it's a good word. It's been funky for a long time. People have kind of, yeah, it's just, I mean, I myself can remember starting to step out, and here comes a car. I mean, it's just a moment between pedestrian and vehicle that kind of, I think, can stun both sides, so.
Yeah, I know that there have been alternatives, looking at actually having that crosswalk removed completely and having the west leg or the marina side, that would be your crosswalk at the stop location, so that you would walk along the north side until you got to the light.
Problem is people won't do that.
Exactly.
I mean, you can do that, but people won't do it. That's the problem.
But at least you don't have a false sense of security with the pedestrian crosswalk. I'm just saying, you know, I get it. I mean, it's not an easy solution, but, you know, until there's the major solution, something that's interim that,
Until you can get the traffic to completely stop.
yeah.
Anybody else?
I have a couple questions, if I may. The city here and the residents have looked at that since 2009 in some formal meetings that we had about how do we address that, including purchasing some properties there and changing the OS, et cetera. So my question is, I hope that I'm hearing, I believe that I'm hearing, because it's a big issue for me now that what just occurred again, that you are looking for something to minimize that issue to the best of your ability as quickly as possible. I think that's what I heard you say. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We're going to put something out there as quickly as we can as an interim solution.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't want to take away from what anybody else has said up here, but one of the solutions was, as you had said, and if that requires us putting some barrier up there to that crossing, if that saves somebody's life, how valuable is that? I mean, that's incredibly valuable. So please, whatever you do, it has to be fixed, and it has to be fixed now. It is, I go by there probably every other night. I go by there often in the dark, and I'm coming up from the marina, and it's just rife for something to happen. So my question is, I did hear you correct. You're going to do something to minimize that at this point in time to the best of your ability.
correct.
Will that be, how soon might that be? Here you go, putting you, I know you have to make presentations, et cetera, but how soon might that be? I mean, it can't be soon enough.
Right. Well, like I said, we're checking on the materials that we have. If everything is in place, then it's just a matter of getting it scheduled to be put in. We'll have to make sure that it's within, the right of way. We're also considering in advance of the intersection that there's another flashing beacon that would warn you that someone has pushed that button. So you would have an advance notice and also notice when you're at the intersection. So if everything is perfect, most likely it would be somewhere in the order of 4 weeks or less.
I mean, you've looked at the intersection, and again, I'm not arguing with anybody up here about the solution, but going down that side is just absolutely fraught with a problem from both coming from the north and coming from the south. And like you said, if you minimize it and take it the other direction, then that is clearly minimized, because that's the problem is in the S. And it's just, I don't know how you redirect that. I mean, we looked in 2010, we even discussed how do we get underneath the street? How do we dig underneath the street and come up all the way over there? So it's been a big issue. I'm belaboring this, but I have to, because safety and security is our number one concern here. So I hope I heard you right, and please stay in touch with us about that. And I know the mayor through Forward Pinellas. I remember some of those studies that Forward Pinellas was looking at, but as the mayor said, that part of it just kind of got minimized, and it now has to rise all the way to the top. It's as dangerous as any place we have. Thank you.
Yes.
Do you have anything, Joe?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You guys might know these figures, but just for the public's perspective, I guess, or idea, the Pinellas has on average 51 deaths from pedestrians or bicyclists that are killed each year. In 2021, that number nearly doubled to 85 compared to the previous year, which had 49. So pedestrian and bicycle deaths are a constant in the most densely populated county in the state. This is the second death recently on alternate 19, after we've already started discussions on what we can do to improve or change the alternate 19 corridor. The first one was 2019. Then there was, so it is a problem. I like the idea that we're going to address this as quickly as we can, but as Commissioner Freeney mentioned, there's interim steps, and I just want to make sure that those interim steps aren't the final solution, because it won't be. You can't solve this problem in 4 weeks. And I know that just by the habit of government and getting things done, you like to look at a project, put a Band-Aid on it, and move on. And the last thing you want to do is circle back in 3 years to talk about it again. And so I want to make sure that we are looking at the long-term solution on this. What can we do today, but understanding that isn't the solution? It's an intermediate step, but it's not the solution. And to try and look at this through the lens of a pedestrian or a bicyclist as opposed to a car. We need to start doing that I don't think we do enough in Dunedin or in the entire county, is to look through things through that lens. More and more people are bicycling, more and more people are walking, getting out and moving. We need to accommodate that, which might mean an interruption for your car driver. And so we just don't want to say what's the easiest fix for cars, but it's what's the fix to protect bicycles and pedestrians without impeding their freedoms of walking and biking. So thank you.
I'm a bicycle and pedestrian program manager in the safety office, and we work in tandem with traffic operations. So Joellen and I work really well together, and the whole point is to ensure the safety of all road users, but in particular our vulnerable road users, which are our bicycle pedestrians and motorcyclists, because they make up a huge number of fatalities. But in particular, so that you know, in Pinellas County, In particular, bicycle and pedestrian fatalities dropped from 78 to 48. So that's a huge plus. No fatality is a wanted fatality. We want to get to 0. That is our goal, and that's what we achieve to do, always. So when we're looking at these short-term fixes that Joellen was talking about in the interim in 4 weeks, we're looking at it to ensure that we're doing the best thing. And we always do before and after analysis to see that what we're doing is the best thing that we can do. In 3 to 4 years, 5 years, technology will improve and change over time. So is what we're doing a Band-Aid? No, that's not what we're trying to do. But could technology change and we have to go to do something different? Yes. Would we change it at that point in time? Maybe we would, because now we need to do something better because something better came along. So our goal is never to put a Band-Aid on anything. It's to do the best we can do at this point in time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Walker?
Yeah, so I appreciate your comments. I'm going to echo what the Vice Mayor indicated, with a caveat to say that this has been an issue for a long time. And the fact that the analysis and review of an issue that we've known about for a long time has not yet been addressed is unacceptable. And I will also say that in my opinion, is that 4 weeks is unacceptable. So there needs to be an immediate solution. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll discuss it too with Secretary Quinn tomorrow, forward Pinellas, and thank you ladies for being here today. Okay, we don't have any presentations, but now it's time for citizen input. Anybody wishing to come forward and speak to an item that's not already on the agenda, please feel free to do so. Give us your name and address for the record. Right there.
Good morning. My name is Matthew Werner, and I live at 2276 Gulfview Boulevard, Dunedin. Thank you for this opportunity to address our concerns about the Parks Department master plan for Sterling Park. We are residents of St. Andrews Links condo community, which is directly adjacent to Sterling Park. The current park has historically been a beautiful green space and provides habitat for birds and wildlife, which is already appreciated by many people. When we received this notice for the community input meeting held on January 4th, we were led to believe that this was an initial community input session to solicit ideas for the park. In preparation for the community input meeting, our St. Andrews condo community of 75 homes had an association meeting to develop proposals that we believe would benefit the entire Dunedin community. We came to the meeting prepared to present what we believe are suitable options for the park, which will maintain the green space and serenity of Sterling Park. Instead, we found out at the meeting that the Parks Department had already developed their own master plan, which includes a dog park occupying about 60% of Sterling Park's available green space. This plan also includes 6 pickleball courts, with plans for expanding to 6 more courts, and expansion of parking lot, which will take away even more green space. At the meeting, we presented 2 proposals that maintain the green space and do not threaten the wildlife habitat, particularly the diverse bird population. Our ideas include a Veterans Memorial Park and a stormwater environmental education park. We're not proposing one or the other, but both together in the same park. And we have detailed information on these 2 proposals available. The City of Dunedin launched the Sterling Master Plan, the Sterling Park Master Plan, with a video and survey on its website prior to the January 4th meeting. This is actually before the community input meeting, describing the plans for the dog park and pickleball courts, and it stated, I quote, "The city is proposing for both of these amenities to be built at Sterling Park." The survey that was included solicits yes or no votes on only the pickleball courts and the dog park, and no other choices are mentioned. What we're asking is that the process slow down and that all proposals, including our proposals, be considered equally with those already proposed by the Parks and Recreation Department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Give us your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Walter Mensch. I live at 2202 Gulfview Boulevard. I'm also a resident in the St. Andrews Links condominium community. A number of you were at the meeting on January 4th, and I appreciated the attendance there. I'm just following Professor Werner's presentation to just reiterate our interests and concerns. Approximately 220 people attended the meeting, in addition to those of you that were there. According to Mr. Gizzi, that was a very significant show of interest in this particular project and Sterling Park. There was considerable vocal input or support for a dedicated pickleball court somewhere in Dunedin at the meeting. However, no one at the meeting voiced any support for a dog park in Sterling Park. There was also real public interest in our proposals that were presented. We do understand the community's desire for pickleball courts. However, we believe that neither pickleball courts nor a dog park are suitable activities for Sterling Park, given the great diversity of wildlife there, active osprey nests, and 3 stormwater wetland ponds in a residential community. There are more suitable locations for pickleball courts and dog parks. We believe that our suggested proposals of a Veterans Memorial Park and combined with a stormwater educational park support Dunedin's dream plan and also the EPIC goals. Let's work together to honor our veterans, provide additional environmental and ecological education for our community with a park that is for everyone and not just some selected interests. Our request to you, our commissioners, is that a decision on the future of Sterling Park be deferred until adequate consideration be given not only to the 2 concepts proposed by the Parks and Recreations Department, but also to our proposals and any other proposals that might come as a result of the January 4th meeting. Thank you for your attention and consideration of these requests.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello.
Hi, welcome. Give us your name and address for the record.
My name's Roby, and I live at 2032 Yale Avenue. I kind of echo what you guys heard. My first message is I wanted everyone to take more time and more community meetings and to broadcast some of those options that came up during the meeting. It was a great session. Besides the ideas that I've already brought up and talked about here, there was even more. So if you get a chance to listen to those 2 hours, I think you'll be surprised at the amount of input. It was great to have so many people there. The reason I think we need more meetings, besides to go through all those other options, is that when this card came out, the next day I walked the neighborhood asking people their opinions and everything, and by no way am I a professional surveyor and didn't take notes or anything like that. But what I learned a few things is a lot of people didn't get this notice. Since then, I've learned how many have been sent out and, do the numbers. But there's 6 streets right across the street from Palm and the Dunedin Country Club. I walked those 6 streets, and then I've done a survey walking around again 2 more times. And there's a lot of people that didn't know about this. A lot of the community doesn't watch the websites particularly, so they didn't know. And the neat thing that was on TV advertising it that day was just on that day, so a lot of people were taken by surprise. So that's another reason I'd like to just slow down and let everybody get their input in. The other big request I have is, and Parks and Recreation did a great job presenting, their information and everything. But now I'd like to ask the commission to ask Parks and Recreation to go back and ask them to do it again for all these other recommendations that came in and evaluate pros and cons, and really maybe publish the pros and cons to everybody, because for us to sit in a meeting and say, well, this is your choice, it was like, well, what about? And you heard a lot of what-abouts in that meeting that night. And there's some good options. I mean, these guys brought up some, and there's even more. There's other things to consider, too. The other thing that I found, and it was mentioned about the survey, is it was almost like these are your choices. Dog park, yes, no. Pickleball, yes, no, other. So I think we could have done better with the survey. It could have started with keep it green, go greener, and then go into the dog park and the other things. And now we have all these other options. So I would suggest redoing the survey and put it out there. The other odd thing I found about the survey is you can add comments, which is really cool under each section, and that's nice. But I can't read your comment if you had a survey as a citizen on the next street over, and she can't read mine. So it's nice that all those comments go in and everything, and so that puts a lot of burden on Parks and Recreation to read all those comments and then come back to you and say, hey, this was a good thing in the other comments and stuff. So unless you guys read all those comments, I'm dependent on the workers in Parks and Recreation to represent us all. So it's funny because if you look at the video presentation on the other page, then there's a section to put observations or comments in there. But to do that, you have to sign in with your Google ID, or you have to join the BIMEO and get a user ID. Well, a lot of people aren't going to do that. But the reason I bring that up is you can read the comments there. So it's kind of odd. So I think.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Time.
Okay, location. We have 17 other parks. There's lots of places we could put pickleball. And the pickleball people said it's a stopgap. And, for those, put it in that location. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to come forward? Okay, seeing and hearing none. We'll move to consent agenda. We have, Jennifer, do you want to just tell us when you all are planning? Because you are publishing the results of that survey.
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. So we're going to publish, we're drafting up sort of a narrative of what we have, the comments that we heard during the course of the meeting. We also have the recording that we have made available to all of you. And also, the results of the survey and the comments of the survey, all of those things our public record will be made public and will be available to all of you and the public to read as well as we approach the decision-making time. May I add, Mayor? Sure. Just a couple of things in regards to master planning this park. When Vince started that meeting, he had said that we have the park, it used to be a par 3 golf course, that we committed to community input just before the pandemic hit. And so we had to delay the community input portion of the park, of the master planning of the park, and that these two elements are, meaning a dog park and pickleball, are the two elements that are of greatest need within the city of Dunedin. And so showed us conceptual plans of what that would look like in Sterling Park. We had some very seriously good input during the course of that meeting, and as I said, we recorded that input. We'll consider all of the public input that we have received prior to making a recommendation to the City Commission. And so eventually, though, this will be the decision of the City Commission, and staff's recommendation will be predicated upon what is in the public interest of the community, of the general public.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Vince. Okay, consent agenda. We have the approval of the minutes of December 6th and December 13th. We have board and committee appointments. We have the Mies Materials amendment to their parking lease and the Church of the Good Shepherd Second Amendment to their parking lease. Are there any items to be pulled?
Yeah, Mayor, can I pull 2C, Mies Materials?
That's what I wanted as well, so.
Okay, anything else?
I would like to pull 3A, but just for an overview from someone.
3A or 2A?
I'm sorry, 2A.
2A are the minutes.
No, I'm sorry, for the lift stations.
Okay, that's under action items.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so can I have a motion to approve the minutes, the committee appointments, and the Church of the Good Shepherd parking lot amendment.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Commissioner Rainey and Vice Mayor Twonga. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, did you all just have questions, or do you want a full presentation?
I just have a couple questions, but
Well, you can issue, I just wanted to, and it's always just for public, just a brief presentation, so at least they understand what we're talking about when asking questions. So, brief
be brief.
presentation.
You can be brief and brief.
And brilliant.
Yeah, Bob Ironsmith, Economic Development Director for the City of Dunedin. Good morning. This is an opportunity. We're always looking to increase parking downtown. Yeah, we're always looking for those type of opportunities. There's a piece of property that's owned by Baycare. It was known as really the old post office, if you go way back in time. It's on Main Street, kind of across from Caledonia. It's kind of a vacant property. Baycare is not using it. We've approached them in the past about perhaps even trying to acquire it. They will not look to do that. So we looked at the next best option, which was some type of long-term lease. The goal was to increase parking. There's a building there as well as a parking lot. There's two tiers. There's quite a bit of grade change on that property, along with significant retaining walls. And this property's been in play for a long, long period of time. We initially entered into this deal to take the building down and increase parking along the whole surface. But as we found out some structural engineering, we had a consultant take a look at it. If the building came down, it would weaken the retaining walls significantly. And all the retaining walls need to be replaced, and the cost went up quite a bit. So instead of looking at it just from taking the building down, we looked at the next best option. Let's create 39 parking spots, let's keep the building up, and let's utilize it for storage, and that's what's before you today. So we have a lease that the Commission approved in February of last year. Well, it's funny to say that, but 2022, and this is our first amendment to now go forward with improvements, but with the building staying up. The cost to take the building down was estimated somewhere around $515,000. We didn't have all those funds there for it. So with this building staying and creating 39 parking spots, we're around $306,000 with a contingency. Some of the retaining wall would need to be replaced, but not all. And be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Oh, did you want to go first?
sure. You know, Bob, I just kind of
Yeah.
wanted to get into your head a little bit. So
That's Jennifer's job.
okay, into how you evaluate.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, obviously, we're talking about a lot of money here. So 306,000 approximately gets us 35 spots for 10 years
39, yeah.
with well, four golf carts.
Oh, sure, I'm sorry, yes,
Yeah,
excuse me,
okay.
Commissioner, yeah.
So I based it on the car ones
Okay.
versus the golf cart, even though golf carts are important.
Okay.
But if you do that, if you give the 10 years, now hopefully it's 15, but went by 10, you know, you get basically for each spot, it's like $874 annually for you know, a spot. And if you do the 509,000 and you get 56 spots instead of 35, you know, then you've got like not a lot much more than that annually for a spot. And I guess I'm trying to, and then if you actually do get 15 years out of it, you know, it goes down significantly, 582 annually for a spot for 15 years. So I guess I'm trying to understand how you evaluate, or did you just kind of think, you know, this is getting deeper than we need to be, and 35 spots is an opportunity, let's not go too far down this hole, or?
No, I certainly understand your train of thinking. A lot of economies of scale over a long time period. Did look at it. You're
Yeah, and
absolutely right.
before you answer, like, I guess too, I'm just thinking about, like, you know, we lease spaces. I don't know what our average cost per year for a space is. So I just kind of I thought this was a good, you know,
Yeah.
assessment of how you go through that.
Yeah, absolutely, can answer both those questions. So, yeah, certainly, we did look at what you said, per space, over time. As you mentioned, the economies of scale, there isn't a huge difference per space, per cost, when you go over that 10 or 15-year time period. You know, you're looking at, you know, $75, $100 type stuff, which is kind of what you mentioned. So we did take that into consideration. It really came down to go from 300,000 to 500,000. That's like a 67% increase, and we didn't have the funds within the CRA to account for it. So it really became more of a capital expenditure. And then we looked at $200,000 for another 17 parking spots, it just didn't work out. We looked at it that way too, Commissioner. I looked at the numbers, as you said.
Yeah, it's actually 21 spaces, though.
We included the golf cart, we went from 39 to like 57. So there was about 18 parking spots.
Yeah, I didn't put the
Thereabout.
golf carts.
But anyway, 18 spots or 20 spots over 200,000, you're looking at $10,000 per space. So we thought that was quite a bit of money too. So it really became more of a funding capital expense, really. The other question that you asked, how does this fit within the realm of the other parking that we lease? This would actually, even with the additional funds, would be cheaper than Ocean Optics or the Justice parking lot. And also would be right about the same place as the Monroe parking lease, the 195 spaces and what we pay, so even with the additional capital. So did I answer your question there?
So it would be, did you, I missed that on, comparable to the.
I like that word, Mayor,
Cheaper than
comparable.
Ocean Optics, comparable to,
Cheaper than Ocean Optics, cheaper than the Justice lot, comparable with the Monroe parking lease.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did we ask if they would extend past 10 to 15 years?
Yeah, they
if
wouldn't go
we-
past- they
Because
would-
we're doing them a favor by getting rid of the building for whenever they do use the.
Yeah, they feel they're doing us a favor.
Yeah, I
too.
mean, well,
So
they are, of course they are.
To be honest with you, 15 years is a pretty long period of time.
That's as long as they want to tie.
Yeah, 10 with the 5
No
option.
matter what we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They're not charging us an annual lease, right?
that's correct, Mayor. There's no annual lease.
It's only the capital
Right.
costs.
Yeah,
Capital
I'm
and-
fully aware. No, I mean, I guess you kind of said it. You said to me, it's a matter of, I don't have the money to do the 500,000. If you had the money, is it a good business decision to go all the way in terms of parking demand?
Yeah, but the only factor, yes. The only factor would be, where are we when Wood Street opens up or open up now and all the angle parking and stuff? You know, how critical is
Right,
this with the
yeah,
game? I don't know the future, but yes, this is comparable with our long-term deal with Monroe Park. Parking is always needed. It just became a situation of capital.
So one last question. So, and I'm assuming that once you do the 300,000, you know, like, it's not going to be an additional 200 if you want to then, hey, let's do it all. It's going to be
More than
economy of scales. You're going to probably be another 400,000 or something.
That's correct, the way they're going with the contractor world and mobilizing and all that, sure.
I just wanted to highlight that to the commission. Parking's in such demand, and I'm just not sure, is it I mean, I don't know if we have the money some other way, but if it's a good business decision with all our parking demands, it's 15 years. I mean, I just thought we should at least kind of.
Explore it, yeah.
Explore it, right?
I think so, yeah.
So can I just jump on what you said? I
Please.
did the exact same math,
Okay, yeah.
except I looked at it per space. I didn't do it over time frame of the year. It actually comes out less when you look at it that way. But I did the same exact thing with the same concerns because I felt, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in front of you, Jeff. I'm just, it's just, she was saying exactly what I was thinking, so I felt like it was important to say at the same time. I really was thinking the exact same thing because even though it came out higher than what we initially planned, if we went back and found we needed it 5 or 8 years down the road, it's still going to cost us a lot more. I am always 5, 10 years out, so I'm always thinking about the CRA expiring and our drastic need for parking. When Gateway gets built, I don't care how much extra parking they're putting up there. We're going to need that parking, and Wood Street's going to get flooded. It already has less parking spots. The new design has less parking spots there than it did originally, okay, even with the on-street parking. And it's also going to have employees parked there some degree or another, plus users during the week. So to me, if we have an opportunity to get, how many more spaces?
56, well, 21 extra.
21
I mean,
extra parking
minus golf
spots.
cart spots.
I feel like it's an investment worth making and doing it all at once. That is the way I feel about it.
Yeah, no question. It just came to capital. If you remember, we did a long-range funding plan here.
No, I know.
And we just didn't have the dollars. We wanted to do the garage, we wanted to do the Skinner. So it just came down to, and I had the long-range funding plan with me. We just cut it to the bone. And that's really what it came down to, pretty much.
Okay.
You know, the other thing that's kind of interesting is like you actually get rid of a building that's not attractive.
Oh, and it's as
in your-
ugly as
in
can
your
be,
East
that
End.
building.
I mean,
It's as
so you
ugly as
kinda-
sin.
and you're not gonna have it hanging
It's
around.
okay, I'm 57 years old, baby. It was my birthday last week, okay?
Happy
There, I
birthday.
made your
That's
announcement
my
for you.
Birthday.
And I was going to that post office as a toddler. Okay, that building is as god-awful as it could be.
City manager and I agree. We've talked this
I
back and
mean,
forth many
I
times, so.
can't wait to see it gone.
Well-
Commissioner, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so am I, given what I'm about to say. Yeah, and I was talking to some people yesterday and actually acknowledged that growing up, that was the post office, so nothing better than memory lane. Bob, the way it stands now and what you're recommending at the 306, how much of that is the parking versus how much, because now we've decided since we're not going to tear the building down, hey, since it's going to be there, what can we use it for? And so there was talk about using it for storage and things of that nature.
Right.
And so we'll have to do some stuff. Cause I was trying to break it out because and I really couldn't.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
Commissioner. That does include painting the building.
Right.
We are looking to use it for storage, especially during, special events. Yeah, I had a lot of discussion with the city manager, and, we were looking at options. And the other option was paint the building, use it for storage, if that's where we're going with the overall capital cost. And then, of course, the other one that it was mentioned here, as far as comparable, yeah, it's comparable with some of the better deals that we do if we went for the full $509,000. So.
Commissioner,
Right.
I did ask Jennifer yesterday if we really needed that storage for the downtown, and your response was?
Well, we wanted to have a useful purpose for the building if it were to stay. And so, no, we don't have to have it.
Right, because that's kind of my thought.
Useful.
Right, it's more of a convenience on using the building. Since it's going to be there, hey, let's use it. And so within the cost of the 306, if we're doing that, how much of the 306 is going towards the convenience of storage?
No, not that much.
Right.
The major share of that 306 is to rebuild the retaining wall on the north side, and then asphalt overlay and some of the other aspects. So no, not.
Do we need to redo that
Yes.
wall?
Have to. Yeah, we have structural engineering, yes.
Why is that the city, because we don't own the land, why is that not the hospital's problem?
Well, the hospital could just leave it the way it is. That property is very, very much tiered. And when we have the
Because
structural
we're not
analysis.
paying for it, it's
Yeah.
because we're not paying a lease.
Yeah.
We're only paying for the improvement to the property, no lease amount.
Right, so why do we need, but
It's a trade-out.
is the retaining wall necessary
Yes.
if we just do the parking?
Yes, because we didn't feel comfortable from the staff and the structural to have public parking there with a
And if
retaining wall
that wall falls,
Yeah.
whose responsibility is it?
Well, it's gonna be
Wouldn't it be
ours.
wouldn't be the landlords, it wouldn't be the
Not the
hospitals?
way the lease is structured. We're taking over the overall maintenance on that and the responsibility. I mean, there was no cost to this lease. I mean, Baycare wanted to at least have that ability, to do that. It wasn't a situation where they're just gonna hand over the property to us.
Okay.
Yeah, but I want to go back to the couple things that were said out here. Even with the higher cost, this is very comparable to our lower cost parking leases. Okay, this is the Monroe Park parking garage lease is about the same if we go with the higher amount. So I just want to make that clear. And it's cheaper than Ocean Optics and it's cheaper than the Justice parking lot.
And when you say cheaper, you're talking
Per space, yeah, annual lease, yeah, annual lease. And I think-
Annual lease per space, not just for lot,
Correct.
right?
Annual lease per space. And what's nice is this is 15 years, 10 with a 5-year option. This is a long-term lease. This is not a 5-year deal by any means, which is what we would, Ocean Optics, I think we all agree is very problematic, how long we have that. And the Justice lot is, I think we have 5 years in the Justice lot.
Okay. Because Bob, I'll tell you where I'm leaning.
That's okay. I'm just here to provide information.
And I know I'm the minority on the commission, probably, in this thought. But right now, I'm a no on this.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. We desperately need parking, but we desperately, especially in light of the most recent death, a lens and focus on pedestrian and bicycles. And so we've got to, if we continually focus on cars And I know that there's a mindset of we need to catch up, we need to make room for cars before we make room for bicycles. But also, if you're continually focusing on the cars, you'll never focus on the pedestrians. You'll never focus truly on the bicycles. And there is a movement on people want micromobility. They want to feel safe driving around. And as long as we continue to make space for cars, that's never going to end. So it's not like, okay, we'll build 100 more lots and spaces and then we'll be done. And it'll always go because there's always a worry. And so, but I know I'm the minority in that thinking up here on the commission, and that's no insult to everybody because we all got our own philosophies. So what I would prefer to do, and I'm really disappointed that in the maintenance agreement, or in the lease agreement, that we decided to take over maintenance, because now that's forcing us to build that retaining, or redo that retaining wall, when I really don't think it's necessary. And I'd rather have that money that we're spending on that retaining wall and even painting the building. The building isn't the newest and brightest, but it's a fine building. And if we went without painting it, it'd be fine. And so I'd rather have that money go towards the recent death at the marina and helping repair that, whatever cost that might be for us, giving I know it's a state road, and I know it's a small amount, and I know that taking money out of something today doesn't mean we'll spend that money tomorrow on somewhere else. But I just, it's important to me as a resident of Dunedin and as a city commissioner representing the residents to somehow start to put a flag in the ground and say we need to start focusing on the trail, we need to start focusing on our streets and making them more accessible for micromobility. And so right now I'm all for the spaces that are there and doing what we can, but anything at all that goes towards the maintenance of the building and or the wall, I can't support when that money could go to what I think are better places. And it's just my own personal flag in the ground. And so.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize when I read off the wrong number out of my notes here, and this is the one that I wanted to have pulled as well. So on the Mies materials, the first comment that I had, I'm just going to go in how I proposed to ask the questions. Would you remind us, perhaps City Manager, this is a large amount. It's over $500,000, and this was in a consent. Would you remind us why that's in consent?
Well, yeah, I'll take a stab in the city manager. We already have a lease in place with Baycare, so it was a First Amendment. So we already planned to do somewhere around the $300,000 initially. So I guess, you know,
It wasn't recommended at 500, it was
That's correct.
recommended at 300.
Thank you, Mayor.
So, and what is it going to cost us?
Correct.
Staff is recommending $306,000, which was part of what was initially approved with the Baycare.
So I kind of look at this as just a rough number now,
Sure.
Moving off of that question. I always look at this as the cost per space. I always use it, I do that.
Sure.
And we're just really fortunate, and thank you very, very much that we received this opportunity to put this parking lot on that, up there, because we need that. And there's no lease cost really for that. What we're paying for is just the infrastructure to be able to have the parking spots there.
Yes.
And I understand from an engineering standpoint how it was stated a long time ago that we had to fix this. As far as going further and spending additional monies, I had a great conversation with the city manager about that, and I think there's a couple issues. First of all, it really wasn't budgeted, and we'd have to go and secure some additional money. I appreciate what the mayor said. We do have the agreement until 2033, assuming we continue to keep it for 2033, and perhaps there's an opportunity for us to change at a later date and do more to that facility, if we wish. But I'm respectful for the lesser spaces rather than the additional money for the larger spaces until we really see what happens to this parking and any other parking decisions that we may make, and whatever might happen to a plan that we might have for the city. We discussed at one point in time from the dais of even putting transportation within the city to allow people to get escorted downtown and back limiting some of the vehicles that are down here. The vehicles that are going to be down here are going to be circling around, period. And that's evident when you come down and watch the people search for parking spots here. So we really need to have the spots. To do this as quickly as we can now, before we start on the big proposal that's going to happen not later than June, I think we ought to get this done, if we're going to do this as quickly as possible, staying with a smaller amount to see if we can get that done. Can we get that done? My question is, can we get that done before we start the big project up there?
The gateway?
Gateway,
You mean this parking in particular?
yes, the one proposed by staff.
Well, they're supposed to start in spring.
Yeah, correct, and we were looking to probably the summer to have it done. So, I mean, the gate wouldn't be open, it'd be under construction, so.
Right.
It would be close. Because when it goes under construction, we lose that, obviously, we lose anything that's.
Oh, that's correct.
Right.
That's correct. Yes, it is. We did able to get Mr. Kokolakis to allow us to use the property for the Blue Jay spring training, as part of the Jolly Trolley Park and Ride. But after that point, you're right.
After that point, then when he starts, if.
Yes.
So my question was, can we get that done, and can we focus on getting that done?
Well, I think actually if we get it done summertime, it's not really our big event season
Right.
at that point. So we definitely will be done and open by the time we start having events again.
Yes.
I'm thinking about some of the people that would be using that as
Yeah.
well. And, I always
Yeah.
talk about who pays for what. Who pays, there is no such thing as free parking, so somebody is paying for the parking.
Correct.
And one of our jobs is obviously to look at what the needs of the community are and attempt to serve the largest amount of people that we can with the amount of monies that we have. So I just wanted to find out how that might work when we lose that big parking spot, and we discussed that. We
Sure.
did discuss that. And another point that was made, in fact, made by the city manager while we were talking about it, is that to do it later might be better from a cost side, perhaps. We may, right now, we know there's lots of money being spent on infrastructure, lots of money being released by the government for the infrastructure, and costs are high. They're starting to come down now, we hope. We'll see. So I appreciate
No, it's,
your suggestion of doing the shorter route. We can always extend that at a later date, although it becomes more expensive per spot, but under the CRA, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And, too, the other thing I just want to mention, downtown's getting busy, and certainly for special events. And, one of the things that Jennifer did is get remote parking secured. I know it hasn't been used that much yet. Achieva occurs fundamental. But, that's the other option that's going to happen here at some point in time is we're not always going to meet all the parking demand for special events, and remote parking is probably going to become a key. And both those agreements are in play, which I think is key, although they haven't been utilized that much yet. But, yeah.
Well, this isn't a question, but I'll end this with just saying thank you, Bay Care. And staff, thank you for going through this. I know it's a tough decision, big decision, since we need parking right now, and we really don't know what's going to happen.
And if I could just add to that, Vice Mayor, and certainly agree, thank you to Bay Care, because they also give us the lot there that's on Virginia, and then the very big lot that's to the east there of the hospital, or southeast, that we use for the large special events. So, yeah, Bay Care's been a fantastic partner, no question about it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner?
Just points of clarification. Do I understand correctly that $306,000 part of that is going to go to repair that retaining wall, right?
On the north side, yes, Commissioner.
Okay. And I heard another number batted around, over 500,000 if the building was leveled and we recouped that space in terms of parking spaces.
Correct, and with that, we also do additional retaining wall work, yes.
Okay, all right. So either way, we're repairing that retaining wall.
One of them.
One of them.
One of them.
One of them, yeah. Very strong grade tier change in these two upper and lower lots.
Okay. And I ask these questions because, yes, parking is an issue that keeps coming up. And, I kind of look at it right now. My initial assessment of this is that using an analogy of, the improvements that you're talking about for the $306,000, which would include painting for a structure that has really no architectural appeal or consistency with the community, and of, the value being storage, which we may or may not need. It's kind of like putting lipstick on a pig. And so my point on that is that, the benefit of biting the bullet now on that, over that $500,000 figure, would be that that cost doesn't increase later down the road if we make the determination that, we need to recoup that space in terms of parking spaces. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it certainly does, and this was part of the downtown East End plan too, so yes, it does.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, then thank you to you and your staff for formulating this. Again, to echo what Vice Mayor, yeah, this is a complicated issue.
It is, I think, if I may, just fundamentally, this property was part of the DEEP, which meant the Skinner, the Gateway, the redevelopment or reuse of this property, the existing city hall, all this was part of that framework. And it really comes down to a fundamental, do you go forward with what was recommended by staff, the 306, or do we take it to another level, and how do we find the additional funds? I certainly defer to the city manager and finance director on that one in order to complete part of the DEEP. And our costs, and what Vice Mayor said, our cost now going to be less in the future. It's a hard issue to say. I don't know how long all these communities are going to be dealing with the ARPA money and these contractors. So it could be quite some time. And our interest rate's going to come down, or are they going up? I don't know. So, yeah.
So if I can add something to that conversation too, if you remember a little history, when you first came, Jennifer, we still had a garage plan for Wood Street with significantly more parking spaces than are going to go there now. Okay? Matter of fact, what we're putting there now is just slightly less than what was there before, in addition to us parking there. 100 employees or whatever it is. Vehicles that, yes, I understand they won't be there 24/7, but they will be there.
Well, you did have a lot of those people parking there before because of the two old buildings.
No, they were on the other side.
Well, okay, partly.
Yeah, so to me, we took the garage money and put it towards the Gladys Douglas property purchase.
$2 million, yeah.
$2 million. That's what we had set aside at the time, okay? We took that money and put it towards that. So to me, this gives us the extra parking, that some of it that we might have gotten with the garage for much less money and much more secure future for this end of the city. And I mean, yes, construction costs may go down, but the cost to
Mobilize.
remobilize a whole construction crew to then tear down the building is going to add back to the cost. So maybe what we should do is give you the opportunity to see where that money might come from. If we can give you some desire that we would like to consider the bigger plan, and can you come up, can you find, I know ARPA can pay for it. I mean, I know that we can't just keep taking from ARPA, but you got to look at all of that.
Right.
And maybe come back to us at the next meeting or
We can do
soon,
that.
because I also agree with Vice Mayor that we want to get this done as soon as possible so that it crosses with Joe's, providing he actually breaks ground.
Well, I'd appreciate a couple extra weeks, Mayor, to
Sure.
sit with staff. We're looking at over $200,000. Sit with staff, talk a little bit about our funds, ARPA penny. I know it's not going to come out of CRA. So, and bring back that finance plan for you if that's your direction.
I think I think the positives too, we have parking there right now. We got 30 plus, so which is nice. I understand the timing of everything that's coming up, and so I certainly, talk with Jennifer Finance, and then just so you understand, if the direction is that way, I need to go back to Baycare and work with Nikki and modify that lease.
And that's
again.
going to take some time.
Yeah.
Because this is not their priority. They've been, our wonderful partners, but not
there's
their
new-
priority, so.
New CEO too,
Right.
here. The gentleman, Matt Novak, has now done Clearwater, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
May I make just a quick
Oh,
comment?
not a question,
I
Tim.
might be overbearing on this just a bit, but I think the timing is really important, that we get that completed before we start over
Yeah.
there.
No, I agree.
I
I agree, if it's at all possible.
If you do this, it may, so please, I'd like to just challenge to make sure that we really see how much longer this is gonna go on, because it's gonna go on, I'm afraid. The challenge would be that it wouldn't, but it's gonna
Right.
go on for quite some time before we actually get that complete.
Vice Mayor, we will expedite this, you know, if we're going to be, if it's your direction, if we're going to be negotiating with Baycare and you know, finding the funding source. You know, there are bids that have to go out, that type of a thing. We'll push it as far as we can, but I don't think we're going to be able to complete it before we start, because Mr. Kokalakis is saying he's starting in spring, after spring training. So we will push it as quickly as we
But we
can.
won't have any events after that.
Correct.
So
correct.
the ones where we close the street thing, so that's,
I appreciate it.
And I
that's
think-
positive.
But again, if you do the big thing, the complete thing, you will not, in my opinion, I'll challenge.
Yeah.
Will not be
Yeah.
done for some period.
Right.
I think, excuse me, I think the positives are, we've already looked at this, and Andy's here, you know, as the engineer too, so we've already looked at this more comprehensive project, so it's not new to us, which is good, so.
So is everybody okay with at least them looking at?
Could I ask
the
one
other-
question?
Sure.
I just was confused about the negotiation with Mies. So for them, it's 10 to 15 years, whether we do 300 or whether we tear it all down or do, is that a big deal for them?
I don't think so.
Wouldn't they rather we tear it down and be rid of it?
I'm sure, because that,
Right, so
yes,
shouldn't that be a pretty quick negotiation?
well, I think so. I had done all this with Matt Novak, and now he's in Clearwater, so I'm dealing with this with someone new here in Dunedin. And the estimate on this agreement before you today was at 306, so, yeah, I'm sure we can get this done quickly,
Yeah, and-
Commissioner,
and-
yeah.
Yeah, and just to say, like, I'm not as worried about timing. Like, when we do it, timing when we do it, in terms of when our special events are, I think is key, because you're right, we do have 30 spots now, so don't screw that up during big special event time. But, you know, then pick the best time to do it and get it done and try to get the best deal, and move forward. But I think Mies has given us an opportunity to be very proactive as far as parking in this side of town. And when you look at the cost of other parking, you know, we got a bird in the hand. And we should probably,
Agree, and
I mean, granted, we gotta responsibly find the money. I mean, hopefully it's in ARPA, because that's probably a great use for it, so.
Our focus at one point in time was not having all of these cars come into the downtown. And so I think let's not lose focus of that. And we,
I think it's a balance, though, John, I mean.
well, sure, we got a balance.
It's a
Look, we
balance,
got-
it's not gonna, yeah.
But I also think
We didn't put a big garage over there, so that was one big step of not creating a big
Right.
monstrosity garage. But it's a balance, and I think 15 years of helping us be able to do the things that we need to do to, you know, create kind of, you know, other transportation options, but it's a
So the
balance.
balance is you got to put some of that money towards achieving the original goal of not having the
Yeah,
cars come
I
down.
agree. I mean, but at the same time, we also get rid of a building
Except
that,
that we do have
lipstick on the
money-
pig building,
Except
get rid
that
of
we
it.
do have money,
And it
but
can't
don't
stay forever.
forget to put aside for our
you know,
looper.
yes, and don't forget about, you're going to hear about this soon, of course, is Skinner Complete Streets, which is emphasis on safety, pedestrian,
Right. and we-
bicycle.
So we don't want to have all these projects going at once. So if we're going to do something, if we were going to wait to do something here and we decided we needed it, and then Gateway's under construction and Skinner's under construction and that's under construction, that's a lot happening all in the same area.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you know, I think
This
we're
might,
better served to do it now versus later.
Gateways until through 26. And
Skinner is too.
yeah, and Joe's is at least through 25.
Mm-hmm.
So
18 months.
I can,
Yep, I understand. I think that this project we could knock out, you know,
Yeah.
quicker than those other two. They're large-scale projects. This one is.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you'll come back. So what we need to do then, since it's officially on the agenda, is postpone it? But do we know when you want to
We
postpone
can, we can bring
to?
it back in a couple weeks. The work session on Tuesday.
Ordinance associated with it, so you don't need to provide a date.
I don't need to provide a date certain, okay. Can I have a motion to postpone?
I move postponement of this item.
second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No?
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you, Commissioner. And I apologize, I think because we were under consent. I didn't ask for public input, but we're willing to take it. We haven't made full
You do-
decisions on it.
I was gonna say, if there's public that want to, yeah, it's being postponed, but also, as a reminder, the consent agenda, the time for general public comment, it's the time for also to anyone to speak on consent agenda items. So you have provided an opportunity for the public to speak on any item that was on the consent
Yeah, but I
agenda.
usually-
But I saw a hand go up, Mayor, so
Does the
it's up
public
to
know
your
that?
discretion.
Come on, Eric.
To, allow for the 3
Give
minutes.
us your name and address for the record.
You've sat through up to this
Got my
point.
clock there.
Eric Peterson, 1336 North Lotus Drive. Really more of a question related to what we were just talking about. Is the 300,000 compared to the 500,000, does that take into consideration that we're going to have to maintain a derelict building for 15-plus years?
No.
Plus including the, okay, so, I mean, the thoughts that are running through my mind are this. One, I think the parking is important. Jeff, to your point, it pulls the parking around the periphery of the city rather than getting people in cars right into the heart of downtown. I think that's desirable, that we keep the cars out of maybe the center of downtown and using that periphery parking. So I think that parking is important for, the pedestrian bicycle aspect by keeping the cars a bit away from where we do the most walking. And then my other thought went to the actual costs involved. If we're saying it's 500,000 to tear it down, but 300,000 to keep it, that's over a 15-year period. You're going to have to maintain that building, a new roof. I realize that you might use it for storage, that it's dubious whether we need the storage or not, but there's going to have to be some sort of utilities involved, roof maintenance, air conditioning, if you're going to store anything of value in there, and then just maintenance of the building. I think if you're really looking at the values, you have to factor in that we're going to have to be liable for that building. Insurance also comes to mind. I'm sure we're going to have to insure it. So all of those things should be factored in when we're looking at 300,000 compared to 500,000. And is it really 300,000 after all that?
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks for your time.
Anyone else wish to come forward and speak to this item? Okay. I just had something I was going to say, and it completely lost. Completely lost it, but it was important, too.
It was brilliant. I could feel the.
Oh, well, don't forget, we haven't come to all our final conclusions about what's going to happen right on this property. I mean, the idea in theory is a passive park. Well, I say passive, I mean, but it'll still be a park like Pioneer, which is active. So there'll be people coming here for things. Where are they going to park? You know? It's not like coming here during the day, during the week. So that's going to be even more people in this area. So, anyway, okay.
Say pickleball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think pickleball's going to be here.
All right, so
Dog
we'll move on to wastewater lift station rehab.
Hello. Good morning,
Hello.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Matt Woodham. I am a senior
Hi,
engineer
Lori.
in the engineering department.
Sorry.
No worries. The item before you is the fiscal year 23 rehabilitation for lift station maintenance. We are continuing a program based on the asset evaluation of Arcadis, which was done, I believe, in 2020, and then moving forward with the selections of the prioritized lift stations for rehab and rehabilitation. This cost has come to $500,000, which is just over the budgeted amount of $500,000. And we had the wastewater treatment plant outfall that was previously slated to be funded by the local support grant. That did not come through with the state, so we did a transfer of funds from that project to facilitate the complete cost for the lift station rehab at $10,000, and then we will make related moves within the next few months for the outfall as well. With that, the suggested recommendation is that we move forward with the rehabilitation and award this contract via piggyback to TLC Diversified from Palmetto. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions, Vice Mayor, anything?
The sum of money on this is always interesting, and I know I keep bringing that up, and just a quick comment from you I appreciate. Obviously, I discussed this with the city manager, people see what we have in our budget that are going to be doing bids, obviously they could do that. And this gets real expensive all the time, and I just want to bring that up. It's a rehabilitation. We kind of talk about, well, couldn't we just buy a whole new, I mean, this is really a whole new setup is really what it is. The importance of this is just incredible for the city,
Yes.
particularly a coastal city.
Very important.
Very, very important, and although there's only 3 that are being rehabilitated, and how many do we have?
So 43 official, 48 if you want to get down to it, but they're smaller grinder pumps, nothing of major significance. You could think of that like the marina.
So we use 48. So we've got 48 of these, and we want them to be rehabilitated, and we want them to be working smooth. We had some fun conversations about that, and it is a large sum of money. We looked at the detail of it. You would be very familiar with it. It's very complicated.
Yes.
But those are the requirements. It was on a piggyback, and so my main question, just to ask you, as our engineer on this, is this fall within the scheme of things within the state of what we have to pay for rehabilitation? I don't need a lot of detail. Mostly for the people listening.
You had further previous discussion on the cost of construction, and some of our focus has been the budget. And with the $500,000, we're really stretching. So it was prudent for us to find contracts that had been itemized and bid out prior to the COVID escalation and then the global economic market increases. So right now, we are fortunate that we have that available to us, and the contractor has been very good to the city, and we do really appreciate their work and trust in it. So we will have to address this in the future. I think this contract runs out in 2024, and as a city, we'll have to figure out what we are going to do in terms of constraints of budget and those who are awarded contracts in the future.
And before I say thank you for that, so that the public got to hear that, as the city manager knows, and most people know, I'm big on infrastructure, really big on infrastructure. And that being the case, that's where I would like for us, if we're able to scoop up any money from anywhere, is to spend it in these particular areas, because again, highly, highly important to the city of Dunedin and its reputation. Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you for the job.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
Yeah, just real quickly, Mayor, did I understand you correctly, and I might not have, that part of this money is coming from another project that we were trying to get a grant on?
We had been awarded the local support grant from the State House of Representatives, and the deadline for the governor to submit for approval passed, and therefore those funds are still being held. And we still plan to fund that project. We have sorted out a solution, and we are just working it through with purchasing, and we will be able to fulfill the construction of the outfall. But at the time, it had been planned, and we had slated our timeline on that money, and it never came through.
Okay, and so this was basically a match grant? Did we have to have our own funds? Or was this a fully grant-funded project?
It is on the capital, it's on CIP for the fiscal year 23.
But as a fully funded grant project, so it's all contingent on getting the grant?
We had funded it and then applied for the grant after the fact, and were notified that we were selected, and so we were going to utilize that money elsewhere, and that never happened.
Okay, and you kind of came to summary on it, but I just want to make sure that, because we're using other money to help fund this project, and if that grant comes back through, are we going to have the funds?
Yes.
To do that original project?
Yes. In the same manner that we will be utilizing Piggyback, we will run that through another program, and then the funding, it's important to note that the overage is $11,000. I know that, you know, in terms of a vehicle, you could buy a car, but in relation to a lift station, it's fractional at best.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions or questions and comments?
Questions.
Okay, I do not have any questions.
Any questions, Rob?
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that. So 48 lift stations,
Yes.
give or take. And Is there a scheduled for rehabilitation for the remaining lift stations, or how's that determination made?
We've moved towards a more asset management centric focus, and previously the company Arcadis was a consultant that we had come in and do a rehabilitation project where they reviewed every one of the lift stations and then assessed them for, we'll say, critical failure. And then those were prioritized numerically, and then we have the most critical lift stations, and we've already begun that work. We are now moving, let's say 5 is most critical, we are moving into 4 and below stages. So we're moving along. We're not worried. Our biggest concern is working within the budget and maintaining that work each fiscal year.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And then related to that is, would it, and I don't know if you can answer this at this point, but $510,000, would that be an anticipated cost for the rehabilitation of future lift stations?
It depends on the sizing of the lift station. Total flows for these 3 combined is less than 50,000 gallons, but you have lift stations like lift station 20 and 32, which will be funded by a state revolving fund, and they are much more significant. They no more important than any other area, but they deal with a larger flow and a larger service area.
Okay, so got it. There's essentially, the answer depends, because there are other sources of money than, the city of Dunedin. And
Though, let's say lift station 20, the budget for that, it far exceeds the rehabilitation budget, which is $500,000. So we would have to go out to bid for some project like that. Okay. And that it is dependent upon that. So anything we can work within this budget constraint, we do.
Okay. And just so I conceptually understand the concept of piggybacking, these are pre-negotiated line item costs associated with another contract vehicle that we are utilizing to fulfill this work.
That is correct. Pinellas County has this contract. It's competitively bid. It has a 3-year tenure, and TLC won that. So we have vetted this with the city attorney and have moved forward with this process for this and the previous fiscal year.
Okay. Yeah, as I also agree that infrastructure is paramount, and it looks like you agree with that. And the final question I have is that, and I'm assuming that because these are pump stations, you've got preventative maintenance programs that are ongoing with regards to maintaining the viability without going into like a full overhaul or rehabilitation.
Absolutely, and we are moving towards a more data-centric dashboard style of information gathering and then disseminating that. So that works with the deliverable that came from Arcadis, which was a very elaborate spreadsheet, and we are now moving that into an online environment to be utilized daily.
All right, thank you.
Okay, is there any public feedback on this particular item? Seeing or hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Franny and Vice Mayor Tornga. Any final comments?
Well, just, I mean, and it seems to be a common theme, but, I think many of us have said this. I've certainly said this for a long time. We're not going to have fun Mardi Gras and fun Wines and Blues and fun old-fashioned Christmases if we don't take care of our basics. And certainly lift stations and our water wastewater system is basics of, good quality of life for our residents. So fully supportive of this.
Anything else you want to add?
Just a comment, again, just to reiterate, I'm very supportive of us if we have any additional funds available. This is a very interesting, and from what I've discussed, the city manager, an exceptional contract. So I would suggest that we would, if we could, step up anything in that area in this particular category. Thank you.
Any final comments?
Just a comment that there's we talked about epic goals and why this isn't an epic goal. It's because this is items that we should be doing. It's kind of the bottom rung, so fully supportive.
Anything from you guys?
No further comment.
Okay. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, and then we have one more thing, and we'll take a quick break. We have the proposed agenda for January 24th. At this point, we're not gonna add the parking thing to this, because we don't know if it's coming or not, right?
I'm comfortable with adding it. I mean, we just
You
need
are?
to look at, yeah, I'd rather get it done. Time is of the essence.
Okay, so we'll add the Mies materials again. And anything else?
Probably as an action item or under consent.
That looks good.
Yeah, it would be an action item, right? Mhm. Because now it's 506,000.
Right.
You don't want to make it consent?
It's fine, it just exceeded the
I'm,
amount.
I'm joking.
Okay.
It was a
I'd rather-
joke either way.
All right, can I have a motion to approve our agenda with that addition?
So moved.
Vice Mayor?
Second.
Commissioner Dow. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Let's take a little 5-minute break. And then we'll start on our workshop item. didn't see a thumbs up back there, but I assume it's okay. You're good? All right, we'll call our meeting back to order, and now we'll work on an informational item where we're just getting an update on Skinner Boulevard, the Complete Streets Project status update. Bob, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, Bob Ironsmith, Economic Development Director for the City of Dunedin. This is a status update for the Skinner Complete Streets. This is from Alt 19 to Bass. We've been working very closely with DOT. I got to tell you, DOT has been great to work with. You've seen it today with the safety team coming here relative to the pedestrian crosswalk there by the marina. And of course, to my left, I have Tracy Hood, who is the project engineer and manager for Skinner Boulevard. This is a project the Commission previously approved, and per the direction of the Commission, we wanted to go ahead and kind of give a status update. This is not 30% design. This is just a status update. 30% design will happen in the late spring or mid-spring. Tracy Hood's going to go ahead and provide a PowerPoint to go ahead and give you an update, and then we're both here to answer questions that you may have. This is an exciting project. It is not just a project to create safety, but it's also redevelopment, it's economic development, it's other mobility choices, whether it's pedestrians or it's cyclists. It's got 7-foot bike lanes, which is pretty unique. It's got 10-foot sidewalks. I don't want to steal all the thunder here from Tracy, but
Pretty much are.
Yeah, you really are.
I know. This is a pretty cool project with landscaping and all. So at this point, let me go ahead and turn it over to Tracy. We really appreciate working with him. He's been extremely responsive, and both Doug Hudson and I have called him numerous times, and we have his cell number probably memorized now. So with that, let me turn it over to Tracy.
Right,
Welcome,
thank you, Bob.
Tracy.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to present on the Skinner Boulevard improvements. If you will indulge me, I'd also like to thank you for all you've done to make your community attractive and safe and wonderful. I live over in Tampa. I've been coming over here to take advantage of your community and the trail and its amenities ever since my girls were too young to pedal on their bicycles. And I still get over here once or twice a month and enjoy all the wonderful things that you've done around here. So my daughters both now live in California, and whenever they come home from their careers to spend some time, we always make sure one of the days is here in Dunedin. So thank you for all that you've done, you and your team, your staff, for making this a wonderful place, giving me all those experiences and memories. So I truly do appreciate that.
Tracy's a cyclist, so he loves Dunedin and the trail, so which is great.
All right, so on to business. So what I intend to do today is kind of go through big picture, what we've got in the project, walk through kind of specifically walk through the segments of the project, what we're intending to do at different places, and then some kind of steps moving forward, where we are, how we're moving forward, and then take your questions. So let me...
You might want, you got it, okay. Or you can hit this too. Yeah, you got it.
Okay, so kind of key elements of the project. We are doing a lane reduction through essentially the entire length of Skinner, not quite to Bass, Main, to just from Broadway to Oak, is where we're reducing the lane. We've got roundabouts at Douglas and Highland. As Bob mentioned, 10-foot concrete sidewalks throughout the limits. We're putting in a new mast arm signal at Bass and Main. We're hoping to be able to do that with just two mast arms, one on two of the corners, one each on two of the corners. We may not be able to do that. We may end up with 4 different mast arms, one in each corner, but we're going to try to get it done with 2 just to minimize the amount of kind of visual noise there. We're providing bus pullouts. I think there are either 2 or 3 stops in the area. We'll provide bus turnouts for them. Putting in decorative street lighting. A raised median throughout most of the limits, which provides a good landscaping opportunity moving ahead. And then I'm sorry to say that we won't solve all your city's parking woes with what we do here, but we'll be able to give you a few spaces. Somewhere I'm thinking between half a dozen to a dozen spaces along the main road. I guess every space is important. The bigger value to us is that having on-street parking kind of helps slow the traffic down. And so that'll be an advantage to that. All right, so just to kind of walk through piece by piece. In the first segment from Broadway to Douglas, and this one probably bears the most discussion because it's a little different from the others. We've got a 12-foot lane each direction, except heading towards Broadway. In the west direction, we've got the turn lane, the same turn lanes. You'll have two lanes there to allow for the turn lanes like you have now. We'll have on-street parking on the south side. The raised median will extend all the way to Douglas, all the way to the roundabout, so you have a raised median through there. This is kind of the tricky part. We're intending for the bicycles to share the roadway through there with sharrows, have them on the roadway, and I'll explain that in a minute, and then crosswalks at the roundabout. The reason we went with having the bicycles in the roadway as opposed to having their own 7-foot lane through there had a lot to do with the westbound direction. We don't have room to provide both the 7-foot bikeway and both turn lanes. We felt like both turn lanes were important without encroaching on the median. And it's a great median. You've got great landscaping in it. We really didn't want to tear out the median. So we thought it was, it made sense to leave them on the roadway. The other, another point to doing that is that when you get to Broadway, the bikes are on the roadway at Broadway. There's no real bike facilities on Broadway. You've got sharrows on Broadway. They're out in the lanes there. There's not really a bike lane there. And the way it's actually striped today, the bike lane comes down Skinner and then just stops before you even get at the back of the return, before you even get to Broadway. So and then we started looking the other way as you're going towards the roundabout. Typically, you don't want to take bicycles through a roundabout. So we're thinking, well, you could pull them off at the trail, or you could pull them off before you get to the roundabout, which are pretty close to each other, where they hit the trail, where they'd hit or where you'd pull them off for the roundabout. So we thought, well, maybe it makes just as much sense to leave them with sharrows in the road between the roundabout and Broadway. That's certainly up for discussion. Right now, it's just lines on paper, and if people think there's a better solution, we're open to it. We batted that around for a while, and we thought that was a good way to address it. The other thing, I guess, to make sure we point out is we've got 10-foot sidewalks throughout, including through this stretch. So if you've got a cyclist that doesn't want to be in the roadway, there's enough room on the sidewalk to accommodate both bicycles and pedestrians if they're not comfortable being out in the roadway, sharing the roadway with the cars.
Why don't we just stop right there?
Okay.
I'm looking right at you.
Yes.
Him.
Why him?
Okay.
Because I know how he is about bicycle lanes.
Where do I go from this? Tracy, thank you for being here this morning. Huge fan of Complete Streets in general and what they do. Coming from Broadway to Douglas, and the fact that there's no bike lanes in there, there's sharrows, right? And the logic there was twofold, it sounded like. One, because there's really no bike lanes on Broadway, and also because there didn't seem to be enough room for the
Turn
median,
lanes.
well, turn lanes,
Turn lanes
median,
and the median, yes.
and the bike lanes. So I know that there's a lot of stuff going on right there. And I know even at the beginning, there were lots of people that had concerns over that intersection and the amount of traffic, boats coming from the marina and trailers, and so there's a lot of stuff there. So my takeaway is on that, we'd prefer to have medians than a bike lane. And with all that congestion, we're acknowledging, yes, we're going to put bikes in direct path with cars.
Existing median.
And that's a concern for me. And also the idea that one of the reasons is because we don't have bike lanes on Broadway. And so because we don't have bike lanes there, we shouldn't have them right there at that intersection on Skinner, as opposed to, hey, let's put bike lanes on Skinner, and now we need to work on alternate 19. We need to work on Broadway. So again, it's kind of, to me, a backwards philosophy in a progressive world we're moving towards micromobility. And so it goes back to my other comments about the intersection as it's being reactive and also coming up with some small solution and considering a final solution instead of acknowledging bike lanes here at step one. Now we need to focus on continuing to move that forward. And so that's a concern for me. Also, in general, the 10-foot wide sidewalk. How does that 10-foot sidewalk, what's the difference between a sidewalk and a multi-use path? And how does that fit in with a bike lane or sharrows? And so you're going to have bicyclists, pedestrians, all kinds of people starting to go through there. And where am I supposed to go? And is there common language being formed, or if not actual signage, physical signage, just by concept of we all know what symbols mean and things of that nature, where people should be. Because the moment the bicycles enter that 10-foot wide sidewalk, which is going to appear to them to be a place they can be, because that's what we use in other places, you're going to get the pedestrians screaming, "Why are bicycles in my path?" Right, which is what we hear everywhere on the trail. So just right there, I'll stop because we're just on Broadway to Douglas. Although I do have questions about the roundabout, but if you could just talk about that intersection of Broadway.
Sure, and so if it's the desire of the commission and the city, we'd be fine using up the space that we have. The part of the space is the median, and the other part is parking on the other side, on the south side. So we could take some of that parking, and we could take some of the median, and be able to put 7-foot bike lanes through that section. So that's not a problem. If that's the will of the community, we can do that. It's not an issue. As far as the 10-foot sidewalks, bicycles can legally use any sidewalk. They're allowed to ride on the sidewalk. That's not an issue or problem. If you're concerned about segmenting or separating the bicyclists from the pedestrians on the sidewalk, I don't know that we typically do that on a 10-foot sidewalk, but I don't know if there's a reason why we couldn't, and I don't know if our safety folks want to chime in on that.
We do not.
We
Do not designate on a wide sidewalk or any of that, that this is where a bicyclist uses it versus a pedestrian. We do not. We expect that they use the common courtesy that they're supposed to and alert a pedestrian where their location is when they're coming up on them.
Common courtesy. I understand it, I get it. Right, I know. And we don't do that on the trail either. So, and I don't know that I was asking for separation. I was just kind of acknowledging that is a certain everyday problem we hear in Dunedin with the trail. That forever and a day, every day, pedestrians are complaining about the bicyclists on the trail. Then you add e-bikes to that, and then it just exacerbates the problem.
Well, I think Tracy mentioned we could drop that parking and create the bike lane there if we want. I mean, there is an existing median there with that.
I thought, when he said that would be up to the city, and I thought, really, now I got to battle the commission on eliminating parking spaces.
Well, we're talking one or two. We're not solving the problem.
This is merely an input session, frankly, before we get to the design. So we've talked about it. This is nothing new to us.
And if that could be considered, it'd be fantastic. Whether that's your consideration or our consideration, let us know, and we'll figure out when and how we talk about that, or if this is the time. I don't know.
I'd rather.
What the other commissioners have.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd rather not touch the existing median that's there. With Mr. Rem that's in there, the memorial type thing. We have that existing median that runs through there a little bit. So
That's and I'm not necessarily implying that.
no, I know.
Noticing the considerations giving to other things in lieu of bicycles was my concern. And just bike lanes are on both the north and the south side? Or is it just the one, you've got a 12-foot in each direction, so never mind. Right, so we do have bike lanes on both sides.
Well, I'm not sure, through this stretch, we don't have bike lanes at all. They're on the road.
Sharrows,
They're
right.
the sharrows sharing the road.
But I guess that's between the trail and the roundabout?
That's between Broadway and the roundabout.
Or that 10-foot could be multi-purpose too, right?
So are you talking about the 10-foot sidewalks, or are you talking about a bike lane in the road?
I'm just reading the title that says Broadway to Douglas.
Right.
One 12-foot lane each direction.
Right, so that's a traffic lane.
That's a traffic lane.
That's a traffic
I knew
lane,
that
yeah.
before, I forgot that, so thank you.
It has a multi-purpose, it has a 10-foot.
Right. And see, and I guess that's, right, so within this whole section from Broadway to Douglas, right now we've got a 10-foot sidewalk, we've got sharrows, we've got bike lanes, and it just seems to be a whole lot of stuff that day to day, people aren't going to know what to use. And so I think it sends a more clear message if we can kind of at least be consistent on that, even if that means reducing the width of the sidewalk. Because I think most bicyclists understand your traditional growing up width of a sidewalk, what was 3 feet or whatever it was, 3 to 4 feet. I always grew up with bicycles were in the road and they weren't allowed on sidewalks. It was kind of a sidewalk. We've kind of expanded that now. So when it comes to 10 foot, what are bicyclists thinking? What are pedestrians thinking? And I'd rather be proactive and figure that out now in design instead of having to educate people on the back end. Well, this is what we meant. Da, 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 da. Could we do it differently? Could it be more focused? So on day one, we've got it pretty much figured out.
I mean, 10-foot sidewalks have impact, are multi-use. I mean, it's something you see down in St. Pete and other places. 10-foot allows 5 people in a row to walk.
Which they do,
Which they do, yes.
especially in this area.
A wider walkway calls for more pedestrian-type movement. People are comfortable with it. So to reduce it, I kind of like the idea of separating the bicyclist from the sidewalk aspect. So, with the bike lane or the Charo.
I disagree. It's just, will the bicyclists separate, right?
Well, they're going to have the identification there. I guess it's like the trail. It'd be similar to the trail, right? They have
Right, and we hear complaints every day, and that's my concern.
But I don't know. I would hate to reduce the 10-foot. That's just me. That's my personal.
And I would too. I would too.
I don't like to do that.
I'm not in favor of reducing the width. But
Well, and I'll say this about having both the sidewalks and let's assume that we'll go with the bike lanes out in the road. So having the wider sidewalks and the bike lanes, what we found is we've got different levels of users. So we've got the guys in the spandex that ride at 100 miles an hour. They're going to go on the road no matter what's out there. They're just going to go down the road. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got the family with like me with my daughters out there. Even if there's a bike lane, I don't really want them on the road. I'd rather be up on the sidewalk with them so that if something goes wrong, they're not falling in front of a car going 40 miles an hour. So that's what we found is there's a variety of users, and what the 10-foot sidewalk provides is a way, if somebody's just not comfortable in the road, that they can coexist with the pedestrians, the walkers, in a more safe manner than if you've got a young child out in the road on their bicycle.
And if we were to put a bike lane in there, could they be separated or buffered from traffic?
That's what we would do at this point. Is if we were going to put it in, we'd put in a 7-foot buffered bike lane, which will be fine and easy to do in the eastbound direction. In the westbound direction, something's going to have to give. The median, and I keep going to the median because if we go to the outside, and you mentioned, you maybe to narrow the sidewalk or to move things to the north, we're going to have to move the curb. That starts making the cost of the project go up kind of exponentially. You have to put all new drainage in, you have to move all the utilities, you have to do a bunch of stuff underground. So
Yeah,
we would typically.
We base this on staying inside the curb lines. The cost, as Tracy said, go up quite a bit. And I know there's also pressures to try to get the utilities on the ground. This is a major transformation for this road. I mean, this is huge, and there's going to be definitely, as you mentioned, education that will need to take place. I mean, right now it just moves cars quickly. Here we are going to go ahead and instead of it bifurcating to downtown, it's part of the downtown. And people will learn it's going to go slow, and we're going to frustrate some drivers. They're going to go on different road sections, for sure.
You don't have to sell me, Bob. I love the project.
Yeah.
Just one last question, because I know everybody's got some. I can't remember, what is the suggested speed limit on the whole?
We're looking at 25.
25 or 30.
25 to 30.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite a reduction. Yeah, so we're going to frustrate drivers. They're not going to want to go this way, which is fine. We're a walkable downtown. We're a downtown of many activities. And so, yeah, but to have the state, frankly, to be on board with us, is pretty big. Right. This is a whole different thing for the DOT. So we really appreciate them looking at it this way.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you very much.
Question on this section.
Yes, just to establish, just for your sake, I was on the Forward Pinellas, and with the help of the mayor, we got the first $100,000 to study this area. I've spent a lot of time watching this. I ride my bike down there frequently. I drive down there frequently, and I continue to watch. I was very supportive of us putting the stop sign here because of deaths. And of course, we're Vision Zero, and we're Vision Zero here, of course. As I looked at this, I'm not going to state what I think exactly should happen because there's two different sides of the streets that are different, and they do have different requirements. But I would say, based on all of our experience, and I was also on the trail advisory for Forward Pinellas, is that we know we have problems on the trail. Already we're really working on that, and we're working with the city manager trying to get something done here in Dunedin. We've even asked that you walk your bike through part of Dunedin before. Separate the pedestrians from the bikes, separate the bikes from the vehicles. That's just my input. It has to happen differently on different sides. I understand we could say we like 5 people being walking abreast, but let's just separate each one of them. A bike doesn't want to get hit by a car, and a pedestrian does not want to get hit by a car or a bike. Both of them can be fatal, and they have been fatal. So separate them in that particular area. Just my input. Very, very wise. If that sidewalk has to be slightly more narrow or what have you, and there has to be another place for the bikes to go. And I'm giving this input based on me trying to figure out how I would ride that, how I would walk that. I love the idea there for this, and the speed limit's 40 coming down, and then it goes to 35.
Correct.
Coming down into there. Almost every complete street is 25 or 30, and that's okay. It really doesn't matter, and you can argue it with anyone. It's a short distance. It just really doesn't make much of a difference. So the convenience, but the major change of what's going to happen here will happen. It will happen smoothly, and let's just do it as safely as what we can.
I appreciate the input, Vice Mayor, too. I just want to mention, and Tracy can emphasize, these are 7-foot wide bike lanes. This is wider than typically what you would see elsewhere, so these are good bike lanes.
Yeah, I don't think you need 7 foot. I'm just giving input.
No.
As I've looked at it, and I ride, okay, mostly that they're
They're
separate.
asking that you move closer to your microphone when you talk.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Any comments about the bike lane or that stretch of Skinner?
I just had a couple questions for perspective. The Edgewater Drive sidewalk, do you know what the width of that is?
I don't. If I was guessing, it was some probably a 5-foot, that concrete sidewalk, Tracy. Okay. Yeah, probably a 5.
That's what we used to put everywhere, was 5.
Yeah, it's kind of their standard. So this is a big difference.
And then how about the trail? What's the width of the trail?
Tracy, I don't know.
I think it's typically 12, and when you get to those areas where it splits, then I think you go to like a 10 and a 6.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously my, Tracy, we do our citizen survey every other year. And, it's clear, like one of our biggest issues, right? Because we're so golf cart, bikes, pedestrian, it's that conflict of everything coming together. And I think, we have a moment here. And for me, I think every time we have a moment, we should probably think proactively about creating less conflicts. And to me, keeping the bikes and the pedestrians separate, I think is important. I noticed it right away the first thing I saw in the presentation. I'm like, okay, I just don't like it because we get problems all the time. Now, granted, we're talking about wider pedestrian, but again, the trail, we still see it there. And again, the electric bikes is a great segue because that's creating its own thing. And actually, Jeff, I totally agree with you because I had written down maybe be proactive to what's happening for bikes on Broadway versus, like playing to that hand, we'll lead the way and then maybe something better happens there. So I think that's the better play for me. I did want to say, you brought up Mr. Rem. I hope we can get a better sign for Mr. Rem through this whole because that's not the greatest sign
We
for
tried,
everything that he's
FDOT
done.
wouldn't give us a better
Oh my
sign.
gosh, that's just not the greatest sign.
don't know
And
what
it's
you're
not
talking
actually
about.
level either.
Tracy doesn't
Not
know.
your department.
Yeah, sorry, but it's just like,
No, but we
Really?
did. The
Come
mayor's
on.
right. We did try there.
We tried.
We did.
I mean, for a
We
beautiful
wanted it to be more
Dunedin.
decorative. We're fancy people.
That's
We like
correct.
decorative stuff.
This was their
So maybe
standard.
Tracy can get it in the design and then
There you
get
go.
out of the other department's area.
You're gonna have to do something with it.
What are we talking?
It's in the
What are we talking
median.
Historic marker.
Yeah, a memorial marker in the middle. Prior state senator there. So.
Yeah,
I
it's just
don't-
not like, it's not Dunedin.
Who used to be the
I will
mayor
say
here?
that.
Maybe we can cover it with plans.
Yeah.
No.
And I don't know if it's still like not actually straight.
I think
That
that's a
drives
little-
me crazy.
Well, we
too.
wanted it to be at least black edged is what we asked
Yeah,
for.
anyway, that's
Because
a,
all
you know,
our signs around there are black edged.
yeah, sorry, Bob, you brought it up, like, but I'm like.
Sorry
oh,
about
yeah.
that. Yeah, it is a little.
Yeah,
crooked.
Is it similar all the way through the whole stretch?
I'm not sure, but that one in
Black
such a
edge
prominent
ones?
spot.
I think they may be, aren't
Our entranceways are great in that, it just,
they? No?
you know, I just wish it could be better.
Yeah.
But anyway, the bottom line is, I just feel like we have a moment to be more proactive and not create more conflict, and I think we should do it.
Okay, kind of what I'm hearing, I'm sorry, I know Commissioner.
Well, let's
Walker.
finish,
Yep.
let us finish talking. Commissioner?
Yep, so,
This is only on that little piece between Douglas and Broadway.
Commissioner Franny brought up exactly what I was concerned about was the conflict, because that introduces a whole nother variable into how you analyze the traffic flow. And with that said, going through the slides here, I didn't see any reference to the traffic study or anything, so what point of the project does that occur?
So that was completed a long time
Oh,
ago.
it was, okay.
Yeah.
For the lane reduction.
Yeah.
That was completed.
Yeah, all of that was done
The
2,
roundabout,
3 years ago, right?
yeah, the roundabout, well,
Yeah.
But the conclusion was that, given the flow of traffic and the
Yeah.
number of vehicles.
But Bob,
that
you can
narrowing
get
the lane
Commissioner Walker a copy of that,
would
right?
accommodate.
Okay, yeah, and that takes into account, though, the added variables of the
Yes.
conflict. Okay, great,
Right.
perfect, thank you.
I'm in agreement. I think we need a bike lane all the way through if we're going to do it. Yes, I hate to lose parking, but I'm not sure how important parking right there is, how important it is right there. I mean, on either side, really, if you look at it. So I think if, you
And
know,
again,
I
we're
would
only-
rather see us remove the parking and leave the wide sidewalk.
We're only talking a space or two. It's not.
Yeah, I
it's not
mean,
gonna
however,
make the difference downtown.
you need to do that, but I think that separated bike lane is important to go all the way down. You see people on Alt 19 all the time, the spandex guys. If they don't want to deal with the traffic that's in that area on the trail, they'll go down Alt 19 themselves and do the shared road, and we, as you said, we can keep working towards it. But people are going to be coming off the trail right there, in between that roundabout and Broadway, and they're either going to be going straight into the downtown on the trail, if they're family-oriented, likely. If they're speed racers, they're probably going to go to a main road. Or if they're going to anything that's on North Douglas there. You know, if they're going to go to Woodwright or even the brewery, I mean, it's easier for them to cut up and, you know, and go to that area than it is for them to go down the trail and try to find a pass-through. So, yeah, I think we need the bike lanes, and if we need to get rid of some, I would love to have our median all the way if we can. But I think the parking, we can get rid of that piece if we need to.
I don't think we'll have to take out the whole median, but it'll end up being significantly smaller.
Well, but I mean, we're gonna want, okay, I'm a landscape freak, and I want pretty landscaping in that median, you know, like what Gulf to Bay has done with those beautiful palm trees, just like what's in the median now, in this section.
no crepe myrtles.
No, I want that same palm tree that's down there by Broadway is what I'd like to see, that's
Sure.
just me, all the way up. But we have to be able to accommodate that within the size of the median. I don't want Craig to come and say, oh, it's too narrow, you're gonna kill the tree if you put it in there.
And also DOT has some sizes that they like to use for the medians too, but I understand completely.
So you all have to look at that, I don't, you know.
What I'm hearing in summary is ensure no pedestrian cycle with conflict.
Yeah.
Really have emphasis on the cycling to allow them to have their designated area.
Yep.
So I think we got that message pretty clear.
Because we'll be working
And-
on 580 too,
Okay.
as we go more east.
And we're good with reducing some parking, which wasn't significant either.
Right.
So, okay.
I guess I want to make sure we're clear. We cannot keep bicycles off the sidewalk. That's
No, I
by
know
state law.
that.
Okay,
We know that.
okay, all right.
But if you give them their own lane, you're at least going to reduce some of the likelihood.
Agreed,
If
okay.
you, yeah, if you don't have the bike lane, then they're automatically going to be conflicting.
Okay, we were looking at maybe could there be other ways to delineate and demarcate the bicycle lane?
Oh, forget that.
Anyway.
By the way, how is it going to be separated? What's it going to be separated with?
It's just striping. It's what we call a buffered bike lane.
Yeah, but a
So you've got a
buffer-
pair of of stripes that have space between them
That
that
doesn't
creates.
sound like a buffer to me.
It's a buffer, it's not a barrier, right? You're thinking of maybe a barrier separated, some kind of curb or.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were doing.
Yeah. I mean, 7 foot wide, which was good. I also, and I know that Tracy, well, we're pushing him too as a team. Could it be a different color? You know, could it be something good looked at, you know? We've seen that a little bit in some other areas too.
The paint or the asphalt?
The asphalt. I'm pushing. I am pushing. So I don't know if that could be done, but yeah, there's no way to
At
put it.
what point is there some particular traffic regulation that dictates when it is a barriered?
Well, if it's a barrier, you're going to create drainage issues.
I get that.
Yeah.
I just want to know, is it a certain, is it required to be a certain number of feet wide?
You know, I don't know if I know the answer to that. I'd have to, Ginger.
No?
So you could potentially put a curb out there? Is that what you're saying?
You'll have to come to the microphone.
No, ma'am.
Well,
Yeah, that won't pick it up. Trust me.
You'll have drainage.
It would, yeah.
You might as well just sit right there.
It's not that we can't hear you, it's that the
It's the people
microphones
watching
pick
can't
up.
hear you.
So
No, you do not have to have a certain width to have a barrier. It's that we prefer not to put it because then it creates other problems, other safety problems.
So what kind of barriers do you normally use? What is it, what's a typical barrier?
A buffered bike
Buffer.
lane just means that there's paint on
No,
the
I know,
ground.
but when you use a barrier, what is that normally made out of? What does that normally look like?
If we were to put something up there, it could be tubular delineators, you know, the little tubes that you see, but in and of itself, those are not typically something that we would do. It could be like the little armadillos. I don't know if you've ever seen those. They're like little humps on the ground. I see some yeses.
When I think of barrier, I think of something that's literally a wall.
No.
Some
we-
kind
We
of-
would not do that.
Yeah, something that, you know,
No, ma'am. It would in and of
Vancouver
itself
has those in
create
their
another safety hazard, and we would not do that. Yeah.
If you go down to downtown St. Pete and they have a separated bikeway, and what they did there, in a case like that, what they do is put what
Pots.
you usually have out in the
Flower
median.
pots.
Well, no, they put a separator. You have typically a separator, like you have out in the median at a turn lane. You put one of those between the travel lane and the bicycle lane.
oh, I see what you're saying. But you can't do that because there's not enough room.
There's not enough
Yeah.
space.
You know, currently today, obviously it's unsafe. It's not comfortable. No one wants to be in it. But it's going to be a
Well, I
20.
think the different color pavement,
It
you
was,
can make it look like the red brick stuff.
well, typically they use green.
Yeah,
They use
green
greens. They're standard.
bicycle lanes,
Yeah.
like you see down in downtown Tampa and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Green bike lanes.
Additional cost for that, but I think it could be significant. I think it could make a nice environment. Currently, it's uncomfortable, but you got to remember, it's going to be 25 miles an hour or 30 with
Yeah.
with roundabouts with a whole different
Yeah.
perspective and image. This is
Right.
not going to be something where you're on Belcher and you're feeling really uncomfortable. You know, this is going to be a different type of situation. And we're trying to work within the curb to curb to ensure the drainage can work. I mean, Jorge can talk more about that one on drainage, but that's a big factor.
Yeah,
Just
go
make a
ahead.
quick comment, because I know the mayor and I have seen this several times, or more than that, of really looking at a video of seeing how this has been put together. And you can see how it works together, and particularly the speed limit is a major, major issue in this that immediately brings down the
Oh,
temperature.
it calms it down. And
Is
it's,
that possible for us to view that at some point? Kind of like what did Deborah used to call them? 3D or,
wow.
Simulator?
yeah, just to try to
The
understand.
cost,
Maybe you could send that, maybe you could find that, Bob, and no, just send it,
Yeah.
something for all of us to look at. I mean,
yeah, I don't know, it's just
I'll
a
see if I
cost
can
to.
find it. I'll see if I can find it.
You know, it's also going to have those beautiful palm trees, Mayor, that you mentioned too. This whole
Oh, you're
complexion.
sucking up now.
No, but it is. I don't think, you just have to understand, 10-foot sidewalks, bike lanes.
No, I get it. There's a
Slow
lot
traffic,
there.
traffic circles, palm trees. This whole image is way, way different.
Very traffic calm.
Very different, very, very different.
Okay, well, I think the different color is at least something, whatever the color is.
Yeah,
Don't you guys agree? I mean, I
like
think
that.
that would be a nice goal to go for if we can, because it would be very helpful, because at some point or another, when we do our 580 master plan, we're gonna want this stuff going all the way up, because we want to get rid of some of those suicide lanes on 580 East, which would give us room for these kinds of things. And so we would want to take that same,
Well, we don't like to call them those, but, but we do agree
they
with.
are.
Yeah.
Have you driven
Oh, yeah,
on
I
580?
I know exactly what they are.
They are exactly suicide lanes.
But we like to put
why I don't
medians
drive
and, well, that's what we found, one of the things that we can do to reduce fatalities or serious injuries is to put in medians and minimize the access conflicts that we have. So we're with you on that one.
Yeah,
Is Bob, are you comfortable with that? You look like you're uncomfortable with that.
no, I'm comfortable with the color for the
Yeah,
bike lane. I'm the
he's
one.
not comfortable with the barrier.
No,
Yeah, no, I
because
understand that.
because we couldn't make drainage work. There'd be a whole
Yeah, I
bunch of
just wanna
issues.
make sure, yeah.
But
Okay,
no,
good.
I've seen the color work in some other areas. Of course, this is a long stretch. I'm pushing Tracy and DOT to at least take a look at this, and he's willing to do that. I just think that would really add a nice touch to the overall cross-section of the roadway.
Well, let me say this about the color, though, that
Yeah.
FHWA won't allow us to just make it solid green the whole way.
Okay.
They only want it at conflict points, kind of like if you have it everywhere, it means nothing. So they want to only have it at critical places, so like maybe where the lane begins as you approach a conflict area.
Oh, that is going to confuse the hell out of everybody. I'm telling you, especially with that new road.
Yeah, are there any studies
I
to
think-
But
justify
I see what
that?
he's saying.
I'm not trying to
Yeah,
be
me
challenging, but I would think that a consistent green line,
Makes a lot of sense.
yeah, they'd always know, because your conflict points are anytime you're on the road, from a bicyclist perspective. You know, and the
Especially with
safer you
car.
can make them feel in their space, the more bicyclists you'll get in that space. But that's the reason why we have so many complaints on bicyclists on the trail. Well, they're on the trail because they don't feel safe on the roads. So if you can make them feel safe on the roads, they won't be as much on the trail.
If it'd be helpful, I can find the material that's out there on the green
Yeah, I think.
marking, but the FHWA won't allow us to put it in, like, just all the way along any roadway. We have to only put it in at conflict areas.
We can send you the material that explains why the green bike lanes can't do that, and we can send you how come it works like that, and the benefit of it being. I don't think you're giving credit to the bicyclists that they will know how to use them correctly. And back to the education that we talked about previously.
Our problem, and I totally hear you, our problem is that because of the trail being right here, you do not have avid bicyclers. You have recreational bicyclers.
But we have
Okay,
people
I
that
mean, we
use-
have the avid ones too, but you've got a whole, plus you have a lot of tourism. There's a bike rental shop right on that corner, okay? And you've got those people, they're total tourists, they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know what all this stuff means. That's why I think we're trying to be overly cautious, because that's the problem we had with the trail crossing. That's the problem with Dunedin's trail is the #1 used area in the entire county. So you've got all those same people doing this, which is, I think, why we're trying to be so extra careful and cautious about it. But is this like a national traffic rule when it comes to bike lanes?
It is. FHWA won't, if they find that we're putting it in wrong, they'll make us come and take it out.
And that's Federal
They'd have to
Highway
fight us over it.
Administration.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. And safety is our #1 thing. Safety is always first with us, it's paramount, but we have to follow the guidelines. And trail crossings, we deal with them all the time, so we have to ensure that we're doing it appropriately and prudently. And so you have the trail users, it's not just here, we have them in all of our counties, everywhere where they're crossing. So I think that
Okay.
I mean, I hear what
you
you're
would be
saying.
surprised at how well
Yeah.
the cyclists use the trails, and they do it the proper way. And they come from all over.
I hear you. And
I'm not trying to downplay
No, I
that
know.
you think that they won't understand it. They will. It just, maybe you don't think that they will, because we have them constantly in all of our other places, especially up in Citrus and Hernando, where they come down all the time, and Pasco, using the trails, they do it.
Well, my concern isn't the bicyclists, my concerns are the cars.
Well,
And,
'Cause if the
but
car-
bicyclists will figure it out. It's
Right,
the
but
cars
the
that won't.
cars, if they see the green the whole way, they know they gotta stay the hell out of it.
Right,
That's the point.
That's my thought,
It's more for the cars than it is the bicyclists.
right.
Yeah, understand, I think they got their hands tied with the federal regulations.
No, I hear you.
And it
You know,
might be helpful for us to see how it looks, right? Because I can't really image it.
Well, maybe,
And
maybe next you can show the conflict points and what they would be green, and maybe that'll give you a little bit more to look at, sure.
I mean, for me, it's the same as crosswalks versus raised crosswalks. Regular crosswalks don't tell the driver they're entering pedestrian space. A raised crosswalk tells the driver, I'm entering somebody else's space, as opposed to somebody, on a normal crosswalk, the car driver thinks it's up to the pedestrian to watch out for me, as opposed to it's up to me to watch out for the pedestrians. And when you come to buffered bike lanes or colored lanes, that tells the driver, I'm entering somebody else's space. And that's always actually been the challenge with bike lanes in general. When you don't have bike lanes, cars will actually give bikers a wider berth going around them. But the moment you put in a bike lane, that tells the driver, I've got my lane, you've got your lane, and it doesn't matter how close I get to your lane. If I stay in my lane, it's all good. So that's why 7-foot wide bike lanes are so important. I don't need a 7-foot wide bike lane, but I do need that distance from the car that's coming next to me.
Sure.
And so that creates that safe zone as a bicyclist. And so when you can do anything that you can, and I look at videos and what's going on globally, and you see all kinds of videos on other cities where they actually have these different colored asphalt and what they mean, and I don't see them in patches. I see them in long linear lines. And I'm hoping that safety does come first, and it's not a budget consideration. Well, because it's so expensive, if we just put it here, it's that Band-Aid approach, as opposed to, let's just do what's right and put safety first. And so if it is coming down from the federal highway, more than happy to look at it, because then if we aren't comfortable with that, now we know what we can do to lobby and who we can talk to. And so, yeah, I'd love to get information on that. It also helps educate me. So thank you. I'm sorry, Mayor.
That's all right. Okay, so let's go to the next section.
All right, so, are we good?
Yep.
All right, so from Douglas to Highland, pretty similar. We've got a 12-foot lane each direction. We'll have some limited on-street parking and a bus pullout on the south side. We will have a raised median through the whole area, so again, some more landscape opportunity. Bicycles will be in the 7-foot buffered bicycle lanes through the whole area. And then, as I think I mentioned in the earlier one and this one as well, we'll have crosswalks. They aren't shown yet. Again, this is very early schematic drawings, but we'll have crosswalks that allow the pedestrians to cross at the roundabouts, cross the side streets and the main streets. So we'll have crosswalks there associated with the roundabouts.
Okay.
Any questions on that one?
I don't think we have any question. I think
Yeah,
that,
Mayor, I got a quick one.
Sure.
I'm sorry to peel this Band-Aid off. But just I'm curious about, and this pertains to the entire length, the median. And I know that apparently we love medians. I know that we got a memorial marker out there, and I know that we want palm trees in it. But I'm just throwing it out there, questioning why we need that at all. And we're reducing it. I understand why it's there now, and it's such a wide road that you need to have that rest spot, especially at the trail, in case somebody gets caught. But we're reducing it down from 2, 4, 5 lanes down to 2 lanes. What's the width of that? And what are some standards on how the width and whether you need a median or don't need a median and things of that nature?
Well, the advantage of the median is it prevents turning movements. So that's why we want to have it in there, is it prevents the conflicts that you create at turning movements. Because you've got the two roundabouts so close together, if somebody heading west wants to turn left on Howard Avenue, They just go to the Douglas roundabout, come back and make a right.
Right, okay.
So it's to reduce the conflicts is the point of the median. There are standards where it's required or not required. You aren't required to have a median on a 2-lane road, but it's the advantage here is it reduces the conflicts, reduces the conflict points.
So that's the reason they're there, so they can't turn left on Howard.
Yeah,
And-
control
And
driveway.
and at least that was helpful to me. I don't know what anybody else was
One of the
thinking.
problems that we're having right now is all the U-turns that are occurring.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And we're-
Driveway cuts, conflicts. It also has a lot for landscape impact. It's going to be, this is a different type of car.
Calming too.
Oh, huge. And no conflict between vehicular since they're protected by a barrier there.
And it looks nice.
And it just leads to continual traffic flow as opposed to stopping and backing cars up and,
Queuing, yeah.
yeah, queuing. Thank you. Yeah, I guess the only question that I really have on this section is the roundabout. And you've heard me mention here this morning on having the lens and focus from a pedestrian's or bicyclist's point of view. And like even in here, it's even how things are presented. And this is just a comment, not necessarily a question, but the fact that the crosswalks at the roundabout aren't even shown. And so that tells me, it tells me we're belittling pedestrians if we're not even willing to show what those crosswalks look like. And so because that's an important feature for me, at least on this whole thing, is the pedestrian and the bicyclist. And so the fact that they're not there and we really can't get an idea of what they're gonna look like, it does give me a complete perspective on it, so.
I think if you look at the other picture that we were given, you can see the crosswalks.
Oh,
And
if you
not-
look at the whole thing?
Yeah.
That other, okay,
Yeah, that's where you see them.
okay.
Plus, I know some of our early charrettes showed like how they would filter in way back, but
Right, and then, right, we did have them at one point, just this demonstration.
Yeah, I'm sorry it's not shown here, Commissioner Gal, but no, we're taking pedestrians number one and cyclists. I mean, that's the whole idea between slowing this road down to make it safer. So certainly we're emphasizing pedestrian, and that's why the 10-foot wide sidewalks too.
Yeah, the reason you're not seeing them is not because they've been forgotten, but it does take a lot of detail and a lot of thought to figure out exactly how they go in. It's very early. We don't, like Bob said earlier, we aren't to 30% yet. This is just a very early kind of, basically we were trying to use this to figure out how the lanes were going to fit and the bicycles and the cars and the parking. So that was kind of how this came about. And then Bob said, oh, it'd be good to share this with the commission.
Yeah,
So we haven't been able to work out all the details.
Well, just as long as, knowing that, but also almost this is kind of our input time.
Sure.
And at some point, that input window closes.
Well-
I don't want them to see the crosswalks and then go, I would have liked them to be different.
No.
You know, I wasn't given that opportunity.
No, appreciate that, Commissioner Gal's input. You know, we could have just said, hey, the survey's been done, this is who the consultant is for the design, we're at this level. But we wanted to show this too and get the input, as you said, Commissioner Gal. Hey, make sure the pedestrian is really considered with this Complete Streets project, so.
That was it. Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody else have anything from that section from Douglas to Highland? Okay,
All right.
Highland to
then-
Bass?
The next section takes us to Bass and Main. Here we reduce the lane widths because we're really kind of going back to a 4-lane section as we transition through this area, and that's all we have room for. That's what's out there today, or 10-foot lanes, and so we're kind of going back to that since we're going back to the 4-lane section with the turn lane. So there'll be a 10-foot lane in each direction, and then once we get to Bass Main, we'll be spreading out to create the turn lanes and the merge lanes. There will be limited on-street parking and bus pullouts on both sides. The raised median will go to Milwaukee. We were going to carry it all the way through, and then we were informed about the new development going in. It's very important for them to have a southbound left to get to that development. So we left an opening. We stopped the median so that you could still make that left turn at Milwaukee. Right in Oak will be right in, right out only. We don't want them pulling out across through that traffic. So we'll channelize that so that that's a right in, right out only. And then again, through this area, we'll have the bicycles in the 7-foot buffered bike lane. So if we change that first section, so we've got the 7-foot buffered bike lane, you will have that through the whole entire section at this point.
Be continuous, yeah.
Okay, any comments or questions on this section? Okay, I just had a couple things, because you You're probably gonna go to the next slide, go ahead.
You want me to keep going, or you?
Nope, go
Okay,
ahead.
all right. So the next thing is schedule. We expect our phase 1, which is 30%, to come in around the middle of next month. Sometime in the spring of the year, we'll plan to do some kind of public meeting to let people see kind of where we are. Before we do that, I can come back and show you maybe after the phase 1, and we should have more of the details worked out. I can come back and show you a little more of the details about the crosswalks and about what it looks like now with a 7-foot buffered bike lane all the way through and that sort of thing. Phase 3 will come late in the late fall. Our final bid documents come in early next year or spring next year, around mid-March. We let the project around May, expect it to start. It usually takes about 4 to 6 months to get a contractor out and working. And then the estimate is really just kind of a gut feel for the project. Take 2.5 years, something like that, to get it built. So that's the rest of the schedule. Any questions on that?
Mayor, may I? Sorry. Yeah, that public meeting in the spring, is that going to be an opportunity for the public to provide comment and suggested changes, or are we just presenting it to the public? Here's what you're going to get.
It will be. It's at 30. It's between 30 and 60. So yes, it'll be their opportunity to provide comments, provide input, that sort of thing. We don't have it scheduled and planned yet. We could do it as something that happens with your commission, or we could do it as a standalone meeting.
Yeah, probably look at, a standalone, maybe at the library or the new city hall, of course. So that's what we do. Adjacent property owners are critical also, certainly, like the Holiday Inn or others to give input. But no, that's the point that we want to get to, Commissioner, for sure.
And so at some point, these different dates, phase 3, final bid, are any of those, will the city commission have an opportunity after that public meeting to see the final design? Is that what any of these meetings are? The 90% late August, I don't know what that means.
We'd want to get additional input before that, of course.
Yeah, by the time we hit 90%, we should be pretty confident in what we're doing. You'll have as much opportunity to see the plans as you'd like. I can make them available.
I just didn't know what the process was.
I guess what you're saying, Commissioner, so we certainly go ahead and meet with the public, and from that point on, we can then come back to the commission, I guess, and provide what input we received and get final direction from you. Once we start getting past the 60%, we're trying to get more firm, so we'd want to get that.
That makes sense.
We want to get that earlier from you. So I think what you're seeing is, we can have another scheduled date in here. So we meet with the public. We get all their comments, we compose them, we'll make our recommendations based on the comments that we get, and then we'll come back to you and get final directions. That makes sense, Tracy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Our standard process is we've got a system we call it electronic review comment system. At each of these phases, we have a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. At each one, we send out copies of the plans for review, and if it's within a municipality like Dunedin, we include technical staff. We include your technical staff to look at those plans and review them. We also send out a notice to the elected officials saying, hey, we just sent this to your technical staff. If you have interest in seeing them, you can,
certainly.
Here's how you can get them.
I guess to be, you have another chance, not a bite at the apple to look at it. We'll get the public comment and we'll come back to you and get final direction.
Well, I just don't want to get to a point where after the public meeting, then the public asks us, what's it look like? And we go, I don't know, we'll find out. Along open up the gift together, as opposed to, no, we've had a look at it, and here's what they're doing. So.
We'll ensure that it comes back to you after the public with a list of recommendations. Okay.
I have a question about the schedule here, and not too much of the detail. It's a long time away before the start, a solid year and a half.
Yeah.
During the construction process, preliminarily, is it planned to keep the flow of traffic going through there in some way, since there's so much going on at this?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
No.
Okay, and you have one more slide? Oh, 2 more slides, sorry.
Yeah, I've got a couple more. So cost, we do have a design fee negotiated. It's just under $1 million. We're going to go back now and look at lighting because we weren't sure what was going to happen with the lighting. We're going to go back and look at that. That's probably going to add another $50,000 to the fee. And then our construction funding estimate is still pretty general. We haven't gotten very far into the detail of design to know quantities and all the things that we do to develop specific cost estimates, so it's still kind of a general cost estimate. And then Bob has expressed that we want to make sure we're talking about the potential utility undergrounding that would go along with this as well and be a city cost.
Working on, right?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. We sent a binding cost estimate to Duke. We're waiting for them to come back to us. So we paid the fee for their engineers to estimate, and then we're waiting for them to come back to us. Our understanding is, hopefully the price will come down, and with per the negotiations I know that commissioners had. So that's a big number for us. And then we have met, just so you know, with all the other utility companies too. We met with Duke, Verizon, Spectrum, all of them, and certainly get their input. And we kind of got numbers from some of the others also. So we should be able to, hopefully we'll get something from Duke and be able to put that in as part of the overall project. I know it's been certainly emphasized here that it's very important to get that for consideration and try to make it happen.
Okay, final?
Final, last but not least, and this may be one of the more important ones because it is covered.
This
It
is
covers
the one I want to talk about.
covers the things that we're still working on. The golf cart crossing, we know you got approved one at Bass Skinner. I've heard that you're interested in having more. I did.
We would like one at least at Highland. Everywhere, we want them everywhere. Maybe not Douglas, because there'd be a lot of traffic there, but at least Highland.
Highland and Douglas. So I've done some research, because the roundabout made me scratch my head, and and I looked at the material that we have, and we have all these standards for what we do if it's at a stop sign, or if it's at a signal, or if it's a 4-lane road or a 2-lane road, but there wasn't anything on a roundabout. So I sent a message to central office about what do we do about golf cart crossings if we're putting in a roundabout, and somebody said, oh, that's a good question, we got to think about that. Yeah. So you guys are on the leading edge, I think. We're going to...
Well, it's going to be slow, too, going through there.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. The traffic's slow.
Right.
We try not to put them on curved roadways because you can't see them, but if the curve's part of the roundabout...
If everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
Yes,
So...
Yeah, I mean, and actually, because of the reduction in speed, they'll be allowed to go across there, so.
Figured there.
That's what we think. There still has to be a permit. We can't allow golf carts by state statute. We can't allow them on state roads, except there are a couple of very, very specific situations. But we typically can't allow them, but we can allow them to cross.
Right.
But those still have to be reviewed for safety and various other things. And I think Joellen and her group would be the one doing that. So as we work through this, if that's something you want, we can work with you on the process to get that approved.
Well, we want it to all be at the same time, and I would definitely look at both Douglas and Highland, but at least Highland.
Yeah, and just to, Tracy, just to say this, because I think I speak for everybody up here, this is another one of those moments in time where we know we have a lot of conflicts between these different vehicles and pedestrians and bikes and golf carts, and we want to make the most of it. So whatever cutting edge thought for safety and for, really taking advantage of this moment to help, clear up conflicts so that, we're doing the safest thing possible. So it's a big deal for all of us. I know that.
It is.
It is just a crossing.
Yeah, just a crossing.
Right. In my mind, it's hard to get a better crossing for a golf cart than a roundabout. But that's just me. I'm not the person making the decision.
Yeah, that's interesting too.
Skinner will be part of the downtown where it is not today. It's a big deal.
So I'll work with Joelle, and I'll get with Bob and whatever we need to get rolling to get at least the applications or get that going. We'll do.
Certainly. Thank you.
The other thing too, Bob, any signage along the road, is it going to have our black edge like everything else does?
We certainly can look at that, absolutely. Yeah, we've worked with, previously, we like to see...
It's got to match.
Yes. Part of our downtown is black poles, some framing and things like that, and we certainly can work with DOT on those, for sure.
Yeah, if you can just get us the standards, I'll get it to the folks that are doing our signing and pavement marking plans. That usually doesn't start until after our 60%
I'm sure.
submittal, so we've got some
But it's
time.
better to talk about it now.
Agreed.
Yes, you know, it's a good one. It makes a difference. What
And
else?
then, the crosswalks themselves. I'm gonna speak for Deborah, because she's not here to speak for herself.
Okay.
She's gonna want, especially the ones that are on the, maybe not necessarily on Skinner as much as the ones that are on the north-south sides of the roundabouts. She's gonna want those to be that stamped brick with the lights. You know that. Especially on Douglas, so it matches everything else we're doing on Douglas.
Oh, yeah, I understand. So the decorative street print, which isn't a problem. I have not talked to Tracy about the lighting aspect that we have on Douglas, so I need to get him up to speed to see if that's something that could be done. But I understand what you're saying. It is another touch.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it has to be that way on Skinner.
Okay.
I mean, I would like it to be on Skinner.
No,
too.
you're saying around the roundabout
Kind of a
crosswalk area.
branding issue, really.
It is a
It's
branding thing,
issue.
but I mean, it's also, it depends what kind of lighting you have. I know you're not gonna be doing the street lighting like we have here. I know it's gonna be more boulevarding,
We looked at taller.
decorative, but boulevarded type lighting,
Yeah, we
right?
look tall, decorative. We have a crosswalk downtown across from Artisan and the brewery that we put in just recently, within the last 60 days, some a lighting aspect in there, so.
We anticipated this, we have a lighting coordination meeting, I think it's next week, about what we want to do for decorative lighting. Let's just make sure all these
Yeah.
concerns, desires
Yeah,
get on the
this lighting
table.
is actually
Flush in the
on either
crosswalk.
side.
Oh, I see, the kind
It's
that's
on
down
either side
in
of
the.
crosswalk.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
flush in the crosswalk and maybe.
This
if
is
you
so
have-
that
In
when
pavement
somebody, so
lighting?
that at night, because especially Douglas, maybe not so much Highland, but especially Douglas, we have a ton of pedestrians on that road.
We'll take Tracy by Douglas so you can see that.
So even if it's just that one, doesn't have to
Understand.
be necessarily on the other side, but just to keep consistent.
No, I'm hearing it's working well. Hopefully you've gotten some feedback. You know, people
They
need to
love
push,
it.
people
People
need to
love
push it. That's the key. I gotta hit the button.
Now they love it.
Yeah, good.
Okay, that's all I have.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody else good?
The only question I have is on landscaping, and when we can have input on that. I mean, just
Yeah.
my concern is climate change and walkability, and making sure that we have as much shade as possible. We have landscaping that encourages walkability instead of it's too hot, I'll drive my car.
Yeah, this is, yeah, certainly, we're not at that point yet, Commissioner, but this is in the median, so it's not going to be on the side, so we're not going to create really that much shade. I mean, to be honest, unless you see something different, Tracy, we're not creating something on the sidewalk areas. It's going to be in the medians.
We are pretty close to the right. There are some areas where we have some additional right-of-way.
A little bit.
I don't know if we have enough to plant shade trees out there, though. But landscaping's a good, I had it on my list of ongoing coordination. A couple things I wanted to talk about that. One, in roundabouts, we need to put landscaping in roundabouts for nothing else but safety, if for
Make
nothing
sure
else.
People don't drive over it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But since we're putting it there, then we want to make sure it's what the community wants and you're happy with it. And then also we've got the rest
Take
of,
Grand Oaks in both.
Yeah, that'd be great.
and then the rest of it, the rest of the
Right.
places we're putting in medians, lots of things we could do out there. And we have a grant program. Typically, we don't include landscaping in our roadway construction projects. We've got an issue with maintenance periods and that sort of thing. Our roadway contractor only maintains it for a limited period of time. All the trees could die and he's to have no responsibility. So what we like to do is follow our roadway construction contract with a landscaping project. Those have a 2-year maintenance tail on them, and so then we can make sure everything lives and does well for 2 years. So that's what we would do with this, is create a landscaping project to immediately follow on. Like I said, there's a grant program. Our district landscape architect would get with whoever, I'll need to get the right people with the city for them to coordinate with, but work on a plan in conjunction with the city that meets your needs and satisfies your desires and satisfies our design constraints and criteria.
Yeah, we certainly could have sustainability coordinator there, Natalie, and also the arborist, of course, Craig, would be key. But, you know, curlew is a example too, that has been utilized, you know, so something like
We
that.
have a palm tree that is on this road already. Don't try to change it to
Yeah.
stuff on curlew.
No, those
Completely
are,
different palm tree over there, Bob.
no, those are, no, we probably keep it, I know, keep my jewels, those are the blue myrtles, whatever they call them over there, but yeah, no, we want consistency,
Hate
certainly.
those trees.
You know,
You said to make sure to put in bougainvillea, right?
Yeah, bougainvillea and crepe myrtles, so.
Not in my
I just want to make sure that, because the landscaping, to my mind, is almost as important as the construction. I don't want to say trees can go there, could be just because of the design of something, when actually putting it in and making some other changes encourages the walkability. And, you know, I'd rather the focus be on increasing walkability, while slowing traffic down, and 25 to 30 is sweet. But bicycles and pedestrians, encouraging them to be out there, and what do we need to do to foster that encouragement? And if we have to change something so that we can put a tree, a shade tree or something that encourages that walkability, I think the end result, and the end result being 10, 20, 30 years from now, is what the focus should be. Instead of, let's design it again for cars, not that that's what we're doing, and then putting in these pretty things, but really those pretty things end up being not functional at all.
No, certainly understand, certainly taking into consideration. I just don't want to get the impression that it's going to be a Grand Oak type corridor. It's just not, it's not happening, so I just don't want to mislead with that.
Wow, boy, you just shut me right down, didn't you?
Yeah, I wish we had that opportunity.
Well, and that's why I did mention Grand Oaks, just shade trees in general.
Sure. There's just other aspects.
Whatever that looks like, yeah.
Sure. And we'll get Craig involved too. You know, he certainly knows what's doable and not.
Okay.
It's been a great input session. I know it's been long. Thank you for all of that. I appreciate it. We got homework to do. We'll carry forward, so.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And
A lot of work ahead of you.
And I sincerely meant, thank you for all you do in your community. I really enjoy coming over here, so I really do appreciate. And I saw how the sausage gets made, but it's not easy, but you make some really yummy sausage, so thank you.
And thank you to Ginger and Joelle being here too for the safety team.
Yeah, we do
imaging
appreciate
trip,
that. Thank
so.
you, ladies.
Very much.
Okay, cool. I'm going to shut your mic off. I know.
We have, I didn't get anything on commission discussions. I don't think we have any of that. City clerk's update? Nothing. City manager, you had something you wanted to, we're canceling our CRA meeting?
We can do that Thursday, or we can do it now, but we don't have any items for the CRA meeting, so we would like to cancel it for
Okay,
2 weeks from Thursday.
okay. Anything else under city?
I just want to, just really quickly, Mayor, this is the first opportunity I've had to do this. I sent you an email, I think just before the new year, in regards to Operation Santa.
Yep.
And I want to say this publicly, you know, many thanks to our fire department, you know, to not only our chief, our deputy chief, our district chiefs, our firefighter paramedics, for Operation Santa. A lot of people don't know that it is entirely a volunteer effort, that our firefighters who were shorthanded in the fire department still,
I didn't even
as
know
you know. Yeah.
Until we got that email.
Yeah. We're shorthanded in the fire department, as you may know, but they populate those fire trucks. A lot of times their families are in the trucks, because when they're
Yeah,
not
I've
here,
seen
they're
them.
with their families, and that's a way for them to be with their families and for their families to experience that. But it truly is a gift to the community from the fire department, and I'm very proud of them and what they do. You know, we do get emails every now and then, you missed my road, and we were waiting, we were very disappointed. I'm sorry for that. A lot of times it's dependent upon weather, or it's dependent upon whether or not we have enough staff for the fire trucks. But regardless, I'm really proud of them, and I'm grateful to them for all they do for Operation Santa, so. Oh, yeah, and don't forget Santa.
Right.
Randy Knott and his wife, Mrs. Santa, was
Santa and
along
Mrs.
this time.
Clark, yeah.
It was Randy a lot of the time, but it was also, you know, firefighters
Yeah.
up there as well. But, and Mrs. Santa accompanied him this time quite
Nice.
a bit, yeah. So anyway, grateful to them as well.
Okay. City attorney update? Anything?
I have just one quick item and update for the commission. At the, pull up the meeting here, during your November 15th City Commission meeting, you authorized the city to engage on for limited attorney services from Dean Riggers, Morgan and Lawton to pursue the issue over the fire that occurred at the treatment plant. That engagement was contingent on, and you all authorized the city to waive any conflicts of interest with the city's insurer. Unfortunately, the city's insurer was not willing to waive the similar conflict. So I just wanted to give you an update that we will not be engaging Dean Riggers for those services. I'm going to discuss with the city manager briefly after this meeting, but we will work on getting a file open within our firm. Some of you have met Fred Springer, one of my law partners. He has done oodles of construction litigation, including both plaintiffs and defense work. So we're going to look at getting him engaged, and he's already spoken with Dr. Smalling about the some of the issues leading up to this point. So I just wanted to give you an update on that authorization. We hope to find some efficiencies in there for you all, but unfortunately it does require both sides to waive any potential conflict. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Commission comments, Vice Mayor? Anything
Great.
with your liaison positions?
No, the great arts and craft show, as always.
It was.
Great commitment by the city to make sure that that happens, and great presentation. So that's all that I have over the holiday.
Commissioner?
I have two things, one of which is, I think you all saw that former Recreation Director Pat Kennedy passed away. And of course, she was our longtime rec director. And, you know, I would like to say, of course, there's a lot of history up here, including your own dad. But, you know, Dunedin is known for its programming. And I look at Pat, and I look at the team she created, and I look at the things she did. So we owe a lot to Pat. I know her services are on Saturday. But I just, maybe in our prayer on Thursday, Nikki, you might be able to, I can give you a little information. It would be nice to honor her in that way. But she certainly made a difference in our community. She was involved with the Youth Guild for a long time, even after she retired. So just wanted to share that.
You know, I spent a lot of my youth in Dunedin Recreation for obvious reasons, right? But also I had ADD, and so that was a great place for parents to stick a kid with unbound energy. But spent a lot of my youth actually not at the current city community center, but Sterling Hall, which was on Broadway, which is where Rosie's is, and
I was
things
at
of
the
that
Jones
nature.
Building.
And that's when I met Pat when I was
Friday and
6 or 7. And so early on, that woman could play some basketball. And so, yeah, I read the email and was very, very, very sad, but she did a lot of good work for the city.
I've been listening to some stories from the old days, and of course they had, you know, like unlike now when risk management and everything's taken over and how many kids you have in a camp, they would have 50, 60 kids and, you know, one class camp and, you know, one leader, and it was a crazy time. And boy, I'll tell you, they could save a buck with their Yaya's chicken. It was kind of like almost no chicken, but the kids loved it. And just Pat's famous baked beans. So, I mean, yeah, so, you know, we have a reputation for great programming, and it's we stand on the shoulders of people like Pat, so, and your dad. So.
And Commissioner, if I may, I know the city commission has an obligation at the same time as her service.
What's that?
This upcoming Saturday, correct?
Oh, yeah, we
Yeah.
have the MLK
Yeah.
stuff, but I know that there's a contingency of people, including Peg, my partner, who's gonna be going that way, and I think, you know, there's a good group of people that'll be heading to Plant City to go to that, so that'll be good.
Yeah.
So.
Both of them all know that we send our wishes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I think we send flowers, right?
Andrea said that it said in lieu of flowers, they wanted a donation.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
That's what we're doing.
That's great, that's great. My other thing has to do.
I like to do both, but
Yeah, I do too, but yeah. Anyway, so the other thing is, welcome back Blue Jays, for Toronto Blue Jays. Going to be a little different. So basically, everything's getting baked. It's almost baked, and there'll be things coming out from the Blue Jays and things coming out through our rec department as well in the chamber. But basically, what it appears to be right now is going to be Sunday, February 19th, probably from 1 p.m. to 5. There'll be a golf cart parade, and Jory and the VFW, Jessica, and the Toronto Blue Jays, Desiree, are talking now about all that. So looking at a route that's similar to what the Pride route was, and then headed back to the stadium. First prize for best cart decorated, 2 season tickets to the spring training games. So they're putting it out there to make it, and of course, I'm sure people will go all out. It'll be more of an open house at the stadium. They really want to make it, not that there won't be a place for, the chamber and the city, probably at the Eddie's area, but it's really functioning more as an open house to try to get the community in, to say, hey, we're here, we really want to bring the community in, and we're back, and we're excited, and we want you here. And some people haven't seen the new stadium, so it's a way to do that. Duke Energy has agreed, they are going to be a sponsor as well for the event. There's going to be free hot dogs and Coke. I asked Desiree if I could announce all this stuff today, and she said yes, but it'll soon be out. And lots of activities and fun. So anything we can do to support getting the word out as soon as it's official, which I think, like I said, will be very soon. I think it'll be great to welcome back the team and have like a real regular spring training for after all the interruptions of late. So it's exciting. I think it's going to be great. I love the direction that they're going with it. It's kind of been more dignitary oriented in the past, and I think this is awesome because it's going to be, the community, bring the community in. It's our community's team, so.
Nice to see it.
Very excited about it. Yeah.
Very nice.
So, that's all.
Thank you. You got anything to report over there?
Nothing further to add.
Okay. Well, we already talked about the Forward Pinellas meeting tomorrow. I will also bring up the trail things that Jennifer and her team are working on. You don't have a date on that meeting yet, right?
I think it's the 30th.
30th? January 30th.
Yeah.
I had to think about that.
Good you're doing that.
Okay, and I think that's all we have right at the moment.
Well then, let me interrupt. Requested some time. You want to put the 3-minute clock on for me? We are celebrating Mayor Julie Wojcicki's birthday today. Let us do cake.
Yeah, I think there's cupcakes back there.
Yeah, cupcakes.
She already told us how old she is.
Yes, you can come with us.
No, I have something to add.
Oh, come on. Come on down.
So I wanted to mention it. It's about the roundabouts and the golf cart crossings. What I thought I heard was Tracy saying we'll look into it, but Dunedin kind of leads in that. No surprise. I'm kind of excited about that phrase. But I also heard us mention here that we're focused on one and maybe not the other. I think we're missing an opportunity.
Well, I told him to go after both, but I didn't think it would work in the other.
We need to really step forth and make it happen. We know people are going to go through those roundabouts.
Yeah, both of them.
As the rule is written now under Florida Statute 3162122, you bring those speed limits down to 30. They're already less than 30 on the opposite side. You bring the main one down to 30, and there's nothing in state law preventing somebody from crossing there if they're legally tagged with a regular Florida tag. We need to make it happen.
Okay.
People are going to do it. But if we do that, lighting becomes very, very important. And I want to bring that to line. Whenever you're looking at a golf cart or a bicycle, when you see them from the side, they're nearly impossible to see. All the lighting is on the front. And so now we've got people that are going to make that connection around the roundabout at basically 90-degree angles. So the lighting has to be fairly well intense. The lighting I'm thinking of is more on the scale of curlew. You could almost suntan under there.
Yeah.
Street level lighting may not be enough.
No, these are going to be more boulevard.
Those are my only
That's what we've been told anyway.
only two feelings I wanted to convey is that
Okay.
we need to make those crossings happen.
We
They're
do.
going to happen. Also, when we do events and what have you downtown, we block off the streets. It's impossible to get north of the main road downtown for any vehicle, regardless whether you're a golf cart or a
Right.
car. That crossing will enable golf carts and cars to be able to get the other side.
Gotcha. All righty.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, sir.
All right, anything else, guys? All right, we are adjourned.
Birthday time.
Yeah.